Chapter 239. His name is Hong Chang-in. He's the owner of the Imperial Water Royal View City Real Estate Company in our county, said Su Ben with a forced smile. Some time ago, he cooperated with a businessman from Blue City to build an industrial park here. I don't know how Hong Chang-in got the government to approve the document and even let the government participate in it. Therefore, the government issued a land expropriation document to us. What's Hong Chang-in's background? Asked Tan Xiu. He's County Magistrate Hong's nephew, said Su Ben. Tan Xiu suddenly understood. He finally understood how big Hong Chang-in's power was. Even the doctors in the county hospital were bought by him. However, he didn't care about the other party's background. He would definitely make them pay a painful price for daring to hurt his grandmother. Not only Hong Chang-in, but also County Magistrate Hong and the leaders of the county hospital. Whoever was involved in this matter would have to pay a painful price. Tan Xiu took out his mobile and opened a web page using the 3G network. He searched for information about the Imperial Water Royal View City Real Estate Company in Qinghe County and quickly found Hong Chang-in's personal information. Go rest, Big Brother Ben. Remember to give me the silver dragon grass tomorrow. Su Ben nodded and turned to leave. Tan Xiu took a blanket from the car and returned to his grandmother's house. He found his mother, Su Lingyun, sitting on the bed in a daze, while his grandmother was still sleeping soundly. Mom, you also sleep? Tan Xiu said softly. Su Lingyun looked up with a smile on her face. She gently shook her head and said, I just tidied up the place you used to live in the room next door and made the bed. You've been tossing and turning for so long, so you also go to sleep. I'll call you at lunchtime. I'm not sleepy now, Mom, said Tan Xiu. But you're obviously tired. Why are you still holding on? Grandma's injury is really not a problem, I assure you. Su Lingyun hesitated for a moment before she nodded and said, All right, I'll also sleep for a while. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu saw that his mother had fallen asleep on the sofa and was snoring softly. He quietly left the room and went to the yard. He drove directly to Qinghe County. Since he had already found Hong Chang-in's information and figured out his appearance through his photos, he would collect some interest tonight. Qinghe County Hospital. With Hong Chang-in's identity and background, he can make the doctors in the hospital refuse to treat the injured people in Su family village. He was also injured in the conflict and should be hospitalized in the hospital. However, Tan Xiu didn't drive to Qinghe County Hospital openly. Instead, he parked outside a row of closed storefronts near Qinghe County Hospital. Then, he quietly slipped into a nearby alley. A few minutes later, he quietly slipped into the hospital. Below the inpatient building, Tan Xiu hid in a dark corner. Using his divine sense, he easily found Hong Chang-in sleeping soundly in a ward on the 3rd floor of the inpatient department. On the other bed in the ward, there was a young girl lying on it. Tan Xiu didn't take the stairs because there were surveillance cameras on the stairs and elevators of the hospital. So, he was strong and vigorous. He silently climbed along the pipe outside the building. At the window of Hong Chang-in's ward, he gently pushed open the unlatched window and appeared in the ward. Puff! Tan Xiu quickly hit the young girl's sleeping acupoint and then knocked Hong Chang-in out with a punch. Like carrying a dead dog, Tan Xiu carried Hong Chang-in out of the window and left the hospital. When he returned to the car, he directly stuffed Hong Chang-in into the trunk and then drove toward the foot of the mountain behind Su family village. Bang! As he arrived at a barren land, Tan Xiu parked the car. He took Hong Chang-in out of the trunk and directly smashed him on the ground. Hiss! The severe pain woke up the unconscious Hong Chang-in. When he found himself in the wild and fell to the ground with pain all over his body, he thought it was a dream. He then rubbed the painful place and muttered, What kind of bullshit dream is this? Who the fuck said that I don't feel pain in my dream? Damn it, why didn't I dream of a few beautiful women accompanying me to have fun? Tan Xiu grabbed Hong Chang-in's shoulder from behind. After looking at him, he fiercely slapped Hong Chang-in's face, directly sending him flying 5 or 6 meters away. After spurting out blood and 2 teeth, he fell to the ground again. Now, do you still think it's a dream? There are no beautiful women here, but there are a lot of wild beasts, such as wild boars and wolves. Do you want me to get a few back and provide them to you so that you can vent your excessive hormones? Tan Xiu walked a few steps and sneered with his arms crossed. The loud slap, the burning pain on his face, and the thick taste of blood in his mouth made Hong Chang'in suddenly wake up. It was not a dream at all. He was originally sleeping in the hospital ward, but someone took him out of the hospital. In a flash, Hong Chang'in felt cold all over and his heart was like falling into an ice cave. He struggled to get up and stared at Tan Xiu, asking sternly, "Who are you? Why did you bring me here? Also, do you know who I am?" "Hong Chang'in, I got you out, which means I know your background and don't care about it." Tan Xiu sneered. "Of course, I didn't make you come out to drink tea, but to kill you. I remember there's a saying that good will be rewarded and evil will be punished. You've done a lot of evil deeds, so today is the time for retribution. Do you have any last words before you die?" Fear appeared on Hong Chang'in's face as he staggered back a few steps. He stared at Tan Xiu with vigilance and asked, "Little brother, I don't know you, do I?" "We really haven't met before," Tan Xiu said lightly. Hong Chang'in seemed to recall something and quickly asked, "What's your surname? Is it Su? Are you from the Su family village?" "Hong Chang'in, since you've guessed my identity, then I can't leave you alive," Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. "I'm afraid of trouble the most, and I'm also afraid that someone will settle accounts with me later. So you can go to hell." Having said that, Tan Xiu rushed toward Hong Chang'in lightning fast. After Hong Chang'in turned around and ran a few steps away, Tan Xiu's fist smashed on his back. He spurted out a mouthful of blood and directly fell to the ground. Tan Xiu's punch didn't directly take Hong Chang'in's life. He didn't want to take Hong Chang'in's life right now, because he felt that there were many means to vent his hatred more than taking his opponent's life. "Get up. It's too boring to play you to death like this. You have to resist, you have to struggle, you have to wail. Only in this way, killing you will make me feel good. If I feel good, I will let you die slower and enjoy the feeling of living a life worse than death." Tan Xiu kicked Hong Chang'in's waist and shouted. In the wilderness, the echo was like a curse, making Hong Chang'in desperate. He suddenly regretted it. He regretted provoking the Su family village and provoking this madman. That's right. In his opinion, Tan Xiu was a madman. This was because only a madman would use cruel and torturous methods to kill and enjoy the resistance, struggle, and wail of the victim before death. Brother, how about we make a deal?" Hong Chang'in struggled to stand up. Seeing that Tan Xiu didn't continue to attack, he hurriedly cried out in panic. Tan Xiu deliberately made a posture of continuing to attack, but when he heard Hong Chang'in's words, he became interested and said with a smile, "Make a deal with me? You are a dying man. What kind of deal can you make with me? Do you want to give me a lot of money? You want me to spare you? Ha, impossible. This day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Even if the God of Heaven comes, I will kill you." Hong Chang'in's face changed, but for a chance of survival, he shouted with all his strength, "No, no, no. If you don't want money, I can give you other benefits. Follow me. How about following me? In the future, if I, Hong Chang'in, can live a good life, brother, you can also live a good life. Follow me, I will let you enjoy a high position and wealth. I will let you have whatever you want in our Qinghe County." Pa. Tang Xiu arrived in front of Hong Chang'in and fiercely slapped his face a dozen times, causing blood to flow out of his mouth. Only then did he stop and sneered, "Do you think I'm a psychopath? Do you think I'm a fool? If I let you go today, I'm afraid I won't be able to live a good life and enjoy a high position and wealth. I'm afraid you will find someone to kill me later." Hong Chang'in did have such a thought, but when he heard Tan Xiu's words, despair rose in his heart. Because of fear and the injury on his waist, he felt pain all over his body and almost cried, "Brother, tell me what you want? As long as you tell me, I will satisfy you." Tang Xiu punched him again and smashed him to the ground. He walked over and stepped on his head, sneering, "Tell me, who in the county hospital did you find refused to treat the villagers of the Su family village?" Hong Chang'in instantly realized that the other party was really someone from the Su family village. However, he had no choice but to bow his head under the eaves. He was really afraid. He was afraid that Tang Xiu would kill him in this wilderness and then throw his body into the mountains to feed the wild beasts. It's Zhong Tao, the deputy director of the county hospital. The reason why he can become the deputy director of the county hospital is because of my uncle's help. What else do you want to know? I will tell you everything. Zhong Tao? Tan Xiu deeply remembered this name. He removed his foot from Hong Changyin's head and coldly snorted, "Actually, I don't have to kill you today. But I have to think of a way to make you remember today's matter for the rest of your life." "That's right, you just said that you like women, so I might as well castrate you and make you a living eunuch." Hong Changyin's pupils shrunk. He subconsciously curled up his body and begged, "Please don't. I'm only 32 years old this year and I don't even have a child. Brother, please be magnanimous. If I become a living eunuch, then the old Hong family will have no descendants." Tan Xiu sneered, "Don't you have an uncle who's the county magistrate? He should have a son at home, right?" "No, it's a daughter," Hong Changyin hurriedly shouted. "The 5th update of this month is over. Quiet Night is working so hard. Is it worth it for the brothers and sisters to throw the monthly votes in your hands?" Chapter 240. Tan Xiu lifted his foot and kicked Hong Changyin's body, causing him to scream again and again. Then, he reached out to pull Hong Changyin up and let him sit on the ground. Then he also sat opposite Hong Changyin and said with a smile, "I think your Hong family can't be cut off. Do you know why?" At this moment, Hong Changyin was afraid of Tan Xiu from the bottom of his heart. He had never seen such a ruthless and crazy person. At this moment, he was more worried about his own life. However, facing Tan Xiu, he didn't dare to resist or struggle. He could only squeeze out a smile and asked, "Why?" "Because you still have a father," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "If my guess is correct, your father should still be alive, right? And your uncle, if you can't be a man, they should be able to find a woman to give birth to a son at their age. Of course, if they can't give birth to a son, then it's your Hong family's bad luck." Hong Changyin was so anxious that his tears flowed out. He desperately shook his head and cried, "Brother, you're too kind and generous. Please spare me. Tell me what else you want. I won't even blink my eyes as long as I can do it." Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he suddenly asked, "How's your acting level?" Hong Changyin stared blankly for a moment before he immediately nodded and said, "Good. I can definitely satisfy you. What do you want me to perform for you?" "Call the vice president of the county hospital, Zhong Tao, and tell him to come here," said Tan Xiu. "Remember, he can only come here alone. If there's another person, I'll kill you immediately and run away." Hong Changyin stared blankly for a moment before he immediately nodded. Qinghe County, Water Cube Upscale Residential Area. Zhong Tao was awakened by his mobile phone's ringtone. He looked at the time and looked angry. He picked up the phone and saw that it was an unfamiliar number. He hesitated for a moment before he picked it up and asked in a deep voice, "Zhong Tao speaking, who is this?" "It's me, Hong Changyin." Hong Changyin's voice came from the phone. "Boss Hong, why are you looking for me so late at night?" Zhong Tao was confused. Hong Changyin said, "Boss Zhong, do you still remember what I asked you to do for me today? I couldn't stay in Qinghe County anymore, so I plan to run away through the night. Don't ask so many questions. In short, I've offended a powerful big shot. As for you, I want to apologize. I'm afraid you've been implicated by me." "What do you mean?" Zhong Tao's sleepiness vanished in an instant. He abruptly jumped up from the bed and hurriedly asked, "Boss Hong, what exactly happened?" Hong Changyin bitterly smiled, "I can't explain the specific situation over the phone. In short, even my uncle can't protect me from this matter. In fact, even my uncle might be implicated. So, your dream of becoming the director of the county hospital is about to be shattered. You might even end up in jail. It's all my fault. If there's a chance in my next life, I'll repay you. Let's not talk about it for now. That's all." Finished. Hong Changyin hung up the phone. Zhong Tao was dumbfounded as he listened to the busy tone coming from the mobile phone. He blinked his eyes and immediately dialed the inpatient department's number, saying in a deep voice, I'm Zhong Tao. Go to Boss Hong Changyin's ward and see if he's still there. Please wait a moment. A few minutes later, the call came back. Zhong Tao picked up and asked in a deep voice, "How is it? Is Boss Hong there?" "He's not here. Only his girlfriend is sleeping in the ward." The voice came again. In an instant, Zhong Tao's whole body turned cold. He was eager to figure out what exactly happened, so he dialed the number just now. 10 seconds later, the call was connected. "Boss Hong, please explain it to me clearly. What the hell is going on here?" Hong Changyin said in a deep voice, "I've already told you everything. Also, I'm going to throw this number away soon, so don't call me again." "Wait," Zhong Tao shouted, "where are you now, Boss Hong? I'll come to you immediately." Hong Changyin said bitterly, "I just came out of the Su family village not long ago. I'm going to hide in the mountain behind the Su family village. I'll leave as fast as possible tomorrow morning." Zhong Tao said loudly, "Please wait for me. I'll come to you immediately." Hong Changyin didn't hang up the phone. He was silent for more than half a minute before he slowly said, "President Zhong, I believe you won't betray me. Since you want to know the seriousness of this matter, then hurry up. I'll be waiting for you at the foot of the mountain behind the Su family village. Also, you must remember that apart from you, no one else can tell my whereabouts, and you can't bring anyone else here." "Understood," Zhong Tao replied. After hanging up the phone, he hurriedly put on his clothes, grabbed the car key, and rushed out of the door. At the foot of the mountain behind the Su family village, Tan Xiu patted Hong Changyin's red and swollen cheek with satisfaction and praised, "You really have a talent for acting. It seems that you're begging me to spare your life, but it's all fake." Hong Changyin's pupils contracted as he shook his head and said, "No, absolutely not." Tan Xiu thought for a moment and then slowly said, "Words are no proof. Prove it to me." Hong Changyin asked. "Break your own leg," Tan Xiu said indifferently. "What?" Hong Changyin's body trembled and a panic-stricken look appeared on his face. "If you don't dare to do it yourself, I'll help you," Tan Xiu said lightly. "I don't have any good points, but I like to help others." Hong Changyin said with a trembling voice, Brother, please spare me. If I break my leg, I'll be a cripple for the rest of my life. Please be magnanimous and spare me this time. I won't dare to bully others anymore, and I won't do bad things anymore. Also, I guarantee that I'll immediately retreat when I see you in the future." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "If I let you die at midnight, you won't be able to live until midnight. If I let you break your leg, you won't be able to leave safely. This is your last chance to live. Whether you can grasp it or not is your own business. I'll give you a minute. If you haven't done it in a minute, then you can enjoy your life in hell." Hong Changyin looked at the grim expression on Tan Xiu's face, and the despair in his heart became more intense. In his heart, Tan Xiu was a devil, a ruthless and merciless devil. He didn't want to die. He still had a great fortune, a great life, and decades of life to squander. "I'll break it." Hong Changyin glanced around and saw a stone a few meters away. He immediately crawled over, picked up the stone, and fiercely smashed his calf. A heart-wrenching and lung-splitting howl reverberated at the foot of the mountain. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction. His grandmother's leg was broken. If it weren't for his superb medical skills, it was likely that even if his grandmother's leg was cured, there would still be some sequelae, and it was very likely that she would become a cripple. Therefore, Hong Changyin's sin was to taste the feeling of becoming a cripple. However, Tan Xiu hated Hong Changyin's painful howl. After walking over, he pressed Hong Changyin's thigh, and his fingers quickly pressed several acupoints on his calf. Immediately, Hong Changyin's screams and howls abruptly stopped. "How come it doesn't hurt anymore?" Hong Changyin's twisted face finally slowly returned to normal. He was tongue-tied as he looked at the bloody mess on his calf bone that was obviously broken. He raised his head and looked at Tan Xiu with an inconceivable expression. It didn't hurt anymore. He couldn't feel the slightest bit of pain now. If he didn't see the bloody mess on his calf, he would have thought that he was dreaming. Tan Xiu lightly said, "In this world there's a kind of martial art called acupoint sealing. I've sealed the acupoints on your leg wound. On one hand, it can help you stop the bleeding, and on the other hand, it can also make the pain disappear. So if you dare to howl like a ghost again, I'll sew your mouth. Hong Changyin incredulously looked at Tan Xiu and cried out in horror, "You know how to seal acupoints?" Tan Xiu coldly glanced at him and didn't answer. What he needed to calmly wait for now was the arrival of the county hospital's vice president, Zhong Tao. Hong Changyin was certainly hateful, but Zhong Tao was even more hateful. As a hospital doctor and a well-dressed hospital leader, he unexpectedly treated the patients badly and curried favor with a scoundrel. If he didn't make him pay the price, he would never be able to tolerate it. 20 minutes later, a Volkswagen slowly stopped near the Land Rover Range Rover. After Zhong Tao got off from the driver's seat, he looked around and didn't find anyone around. Just as he took a few steps forward, a ghostly figure appeared behind him without a sound. A punch landed on his temple and knocked him out. Tan Xiu grabbed Zhong Tao and took him to a place 100 meters away. He then threw him in front of Hong Changyin, who was sitting paralyzed on the ground, and lightly said, "Wake him up. It's best to break his leg with a stone." Hong Changyin hesitated for a moment before he picked up the stone in accordance with Tan Xiu's instruction and fiercely smashed Zhong Tao's left calf. The great pain of broken bones made Zhong Tao wake up from his coma. Cries that sounded like pigs being slaughtered echoed in the wilderness. With the help of the starlight, Zhong Tao clearly saw Hong Changyin, who was sitting paralyzed in front of him. Disbelief was revealed in his eyes because Hong Changyin's current appearance was too miserable. "I'm sorry, Vice President Zhong," said Hong Changyin bitterly. Zhong Tao stared at him blankly. After more than 10 seconds, he realized that there was someone behind him and turned to look at Tan Xiu. His complexion suddenly changed. "You're Zhong Tao, right? The vice president of Qinghe County Hospital, right? You're a doctor, yet you cling to the rich and powerful and harm the patients. You're really something." Tan Xiu walked to the front of Zhong Tao and said indifferently, "Who are you?" Zhong Tao involuntarily exclaimed, "Who am I?" Tan Xiu sneered. "I'm an executioner who enforces justice on behalf of heaven, a butcher who punishes the evil and upholds the good. Don't blame Hong Changyin. I forced him to deceive you. Because if he didn't deceive you, he would have died today. If he died, I'm afraid your fate in the future won't be much better than his." Chapter 241. Zhong Tao suddenly turned to look at Hong Changyin and then turned to look at Tan Xiu. His lips squirmed a few times before he bitterly said, "I understand. You deceived me to come here and even broke my leg. I think you're retaliating against me for what I did to the Su family village, right?" "That's right," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "I'm indeed retaliating. You know, if I hadn't come back from Star City in time, my grandmother would have continued to suffer. She would have continued to stay outside the hospital's operating room, waiting for those doctors who said they were operating on the patient, but were actually playing landlord inside." An intense regret arose inside Zhong Tao's heart. He regretted intervening in Hong Changyin's matter. He originally wanted to curry favor with Hong Changyin. On the one hand, he could get a lot of benefits from Hong Changyin. On the other hand, he could also use Hong Changyin's words in front of the county magistrate, giving him the opportunity to be promoted to the county hospital's president. But the result was, he hadn't gotten any benefits yet, but had instead provoked a lot of trouble. He was a doctor. He was perfectly aware of the condition of his left leg. He was also aware that he would probably become a cripple for the rest of his life. Tan Xiu looked at Hong Changyin and lightly said, "Promise me one thing and I'll let you go." Hong Changyin looked pleasantly surprised and hurriedly asked, "What is it? Please say it." "You've been miserably beaten by me." "Very miserably," Tan Xiu said. "If others were to see your current appearance, they would definitely remember it for a lifetime. Therefore, I hope you can also beat this surnamed Zhong to the same appearance. Rest assured, if he dares to fight back, I'll use a stone to break his other leg." Zhong Tao glared at Hong Changyin and angrily shouted, "You dare?" Hong Changyin didn't answer. He grabbed the branch thrown by Tan Xiu and sat there paralyzed as he fiercely whipped Zhong Tao. Every man for himself. In order to escape from danger, let alone beating Zhong Tao, Hong Changyin wouldn't hesitate to kill Zhong Tao even if Tan Xiu asked him to. Pa! Hong Changyin whipped Zhong Tao, causing him to roll on the ground and constantly scream. After fighting for a full 2 to 3 minutes, Zhong Tao's head was badly battered and bleeding, looking exceptionally miserable. Only then did he stop and look at Tan Xiu expectantly. With a faint smile, Tan Xiu raised his thumb and said, "Very good. You're also ruthless enough. For the sake of your own survival, you even beat up the people who helped you so badly. Alright, if you two can still walk, then go back. Remember, if anyone wants revenge, come to me. My name is Tan Xiu, a very ordinary and kind citizen. Of course, before you take revenge on me, be prepared to be killed." Finished. He turned to the Land Rover and drove off into the distance. After driving for 2 kilometers, Tan Xiu parked the car on the side of the road. After turning off the engine, he quietly returned to the vicinity of Hong Changyin and Zhong Tao. He quietly hid in the grass and observed quietly. He was not afraid of revenge, but he was afraid that Hong Changyin and Zhong Tao would take revenge on his grandmother. Therefore, he wanted to hear what the two of them would conspire after he left. Zhong Tao watched the Land Rover disappear. Then, he looked at Hong Changyin with a face full of resentment and shouted, "Surnamed Hong, I helped you, yet you treat me like this. Good, you're really good. Today's matter is not over yet. Even if you have money and power, even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Just wait for me, you fucking wait for me." Hong Changyin looked at Zhong Tao and didn't speak for a long time. His expression was constantly changing. A murderous intent emerged in his eyes. He suddenly felt that what Tan Xiu said was right. If others saw his miserable appearance, they would definitely remember it for a lifetime. He didn't want others to remember his miserable appearance today. He didn't want them to know that he sold out the people who helped him. "Vice President Zhong, let's talk." Finally, Hong Changyin spoke. "What else is there to talk about?" Zhong Tao hatefully shouted, "You're greedy for life and afraid of death. You even hurt me so badly just to save your life. I'll become a cripple and everything will be over. Not only will I not be able to become the county hospital's president, I'm afraid I'll even lose my job. It's all because of you. This is all your fault." "Don't be so angry, Vice President Zhong," Hong Changyin sneered. "There's a saying that every man for himself will be destroyed by heaven and earth. I'm still young and haven't lived long enough. Therefore, I can only make it up to you. But I'll make it up to you later." Zhong Tao angrily cursed, "Make it up to me? How are you going to make it up to me? Based on my many years of clinical experience, no matter how advanced medical technology is, there's no way for me to recover from this broken leg. Do you understand? I'll be a cripple in the future." "What do you want then?" Hong Changyin asked in a deep voice. "You want me to compensate you with my leg?" Zhong Tao clenched his fists and shouted, "You want me to compensate you with my leg? You only have one fucking leg left, yet you still have the qualifications to say this? Although I, Zhong Tao, have done a lot of things in my life, I've never suffered such a big crime and had such a miserable ending." Hong Changyin stared fixedly at Zhong Tao. After a long silence, he looked at Zhong Tao's ferocious face and slowly nodded, "I understand. I already owed you once, so it's not a big deal to owe you again. If that's the case, then go to hell." While speaking, Hong Changyin had already picked up the stone next to him and fiercely smashed it toward Zhong Tao's head. Although he was injured all over, his killing intent was surging and his strength was surprisingly great. The stone accurately smashed Zhong Tao's head, knocking him down. Then, he dragged his broken leg and picked up the stone again. He held it with both hands and smashed Zhong Tao's head again and again. Huff! Hong Changyin smashed Zhong Tao's head more than a dozen times in one breath. Only then did he heave a long sigh of relief. With a bloody face, he looked at Zhong Tao who had been smashed to death. Clap, clap, clap. Tan Xiu, who was hiding in the bushes, didn't stop Hong Changyin from killing. At this moment, he even swaggered out and applauded as he came before Hong Changyin and praised, "Boss Hong is really a ruthless and merciless person. No wonder you dared to lay your hands on an ordinary boss. The scene of you killing people just now was really wonderful. I took a video of it. If it's uploaded to the internet, I'm sure it will cause a huge sensation. Hong Changyin looked at the returning Tan Xiao in disbelief. He almost cried after listening to Tan Xiao's words. He had the guts to kill Zhong Tao, but he didn't have the guts to retaliate against Tan Xiao. However, he didn't expect that not only would he be beaten miserably by Tan Xiao, but Tan Xiao would also get the evidence of him killing people. In an instant, he almost fainted. "What's wrong?" Tan Xiao said with a smile. "You didn't expect that I would come back? You didn't expect that I would see your ruthless side, did you? Brother, big brother, I'm begging you, please spare me," Hong Changyin said with a tearful face. "I really don't dare to have the slightest thought of retaliating against you. I killed him because he had malice toward me. I don't want the things that happened tonight to reach the ears of a fourth person." Tan Xiao gave him a thumbs up and praised, "You're really astute. No wonder your business is so big. It seems that you're not just relying on your uncle to bully you. Alright, I said I won't kill you, so naturally, I won't take your life. However, I just thought about it when I left and felt that it's not enough to vent my hatred if I just let you go like this. So I wanted to break your other leg. But now, I've changed my mind." Hong Changyin's heart turned cold and he cautiously asked, "Then, can you let me go now?" "You can leave at any time," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "However, the premise is that you have to compensate the injured villagers after you leave. And the amount must not be less." "Money?" Hong Changyin secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He patted his chest and guaranteed, "Don't worry. I'll definitely send someone to send the compensation to the villagers. Also, the project I'm going to do will be stopped immediately. If anyone dares to have any ideas about the Su family village in the future, I, Hong Changyin, will not let them go. You see, is this okay?" Tan Xiao nodded with satisfaction. He reached out to pick up Hong Changyin and lightly said, "You've broken a leg. If you leave like this, you'll be discovered by others. Also, in order to help you destroy the evidence, I'll send you back to the Qinghe County Hospital and then come back to clean up the mess." Hong Changyin tentatively asked, "You really won't tell anyone about my murder?" Tan Xiao lightly said, "As long as you can do what you said, I'll cover it up for you." Thank you, brother," Hong Changyin said gratefully. Tan Xiao looked at Hong Changyin with a smile and carried him back to the parking place. Then he quietly sent him back to the county hospital ward as fast as he could. "Brother, you took me out like this?" Hong Changyin was sent back to the hospital ward and found that his girlfriend was not there. He immediately looked at Tan Xiao, who was about to leave, and asked. Tan Xiao turned around and lightly said, "What? Is there a problem?" Hong Changyin desperately swallowed his saliva and shook his head. Although Tan Xiao was able to grab him and easily climb up to the third floor of the inpatient department and send him back from the window with ease, he was shocked to the point that it was hard for him to be able to recover, but he did not dare to show it. Terrifying. This kind of appellation emerged in his heart one after another. Tan Xiao lightly said, "Let alone you live on the third floor, even if you live on the 30th floor, I can easily get you out and send you back if I want to. You can't even think about my ability. Alright, I think you have a way to solve the problem here. I'll take care of the rest." After that, Tan Xiao's figure was as fast as lightning. In an instant, he slipped out of the window and disappeared into the night in the distance. Hong Changyin limped to the window and looked at the dark scene outside, yet the fear in his heart didn't reduce much. He was full of fear toward the unknown. He was even more worried that Tan Xiao would go back on his words and hand over the evidence of his murder to the police or publish it on the internet. "I can't care so much anymore. I have to find an excuse to cover up my injuries." Hong Changyin pondered for a few minutes. He then dialed a cell phone number and spoke in a deep voice, "Huzi, don't sleep yet. Immediately come to the hospital alone. Remember to bring a stone and come directly to my ward." Chapter 242. Tan Xiao drove back to the mountain behind the Su family village and threw Zhong Tao's corpse into the mountain to feed the wild beasts. When he returned to his car, Tan Xiao frowned. Of course, he could deal with it. But what about this car? After hesitating for a long time, Tan Xiao finally decided to drive the car away. He remembered that there was a small lake about a dozen kilometers away, and it shouldn't be a problem to throw the car into the lake. An hour later, when the sky was just starting to brighten, Tan Xiu finally erased all the traces and drove back to the Su family village. Yo, this is little Xiu? Just when Tan Xiu stopped the car, an uncle who was passing by came over. They circled around the Land Rover SUV twice before their eyes landed on Tang Xiu, who just got off the car. Tan Xiu knew who this person was, so he smiled and said, "Uncle Danian, you're up so early." Su Danian looked at Tan Xiu with a surprised expression, then looked at the Range Rover SUV before he curiously said, "It's cool in the morning to mow the weeds. But when did you learn to drive, little Xiu? And you're even driving such a good car? My goodness, although your Uncle Danian doesn't know much about cars, I can tell that this car must be very expensive, right?" Tan Xiu smiled and said, "Uncle Danian, a car is just a means of transportation. There's nothing strange about it." Su Danian nodded and praised, "Our countrymen like to drive good cars and compare themselves with others. You have a good character, and you're still as simple as when you were young." "Uncle Danian, you're overpraising me." Tan Xiu and Su Danian exchanged a few words before they returned to the courtyard. What he didn't expect was that his mother, Su Lingyun, had already woken up and was washing up in the courtyard. "Mom, why didn't you sleep more?" Su Lingyun smiled and said, "Your grandma woke up and said that she was hungry. Since I couldn't sleep anymore, I got up to make breakfast for her." "Xiu, you weren't home when I woke up. Where did you go?" Tan Xiu didn't want to tell Su Lingyun about his revenge on Hong Changyin and Zhong Tao because he knew his mother's character. If he told her, he was afraid that she would be worried for a long time. Therefore, he lied and said, "I drove around nearby. I haven't been back for nearly 2 years, but my hometown hasn't changed much." Su Lingyun shook her head and said, "We're too poor here, so the changes won't be that big. Alright, you go take a rest first. I'll make dinner right away." Alright. Tan Xiu agreed and went to the room next door where he used to live. The walls and furniture were familiar to him. He had lived here for more than 10 years. Those years were unforgettable for him even after 10,000 years in the immortal world. "This is my real home." Tan Xiu sighed deeply in his heart. The warmth in his chest made him a little tired. After pondering for a moment, he laid on the bed with his clothes on and slowly fell asleep. 2 hours later, more than half of the villagers had gathered outside the Su family's dilapidated courtyard. Some of them curiously looked at the Land Rover SUV parked outside the courtyard, while others looked grateful as they chatted with Su Lingyun. "Little Yun, Quan Zi has come back and told us about the matter." Thank you, Tan Xiu. If it weren't for him, I'm afraid my fourth uncle would still be in the corridor of the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital's inpatient department." "Lingyun, you've given birth to a good son. He's grown up and has a promising future. If it weren't for him this time, I'm afraid those villagers who rushed to Star City would have suffered a lot. Tan Xiu is so young, yet he's already so capable. He's really the pride of our village. I heard that he even has medical skills now, and he's also the divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital's outpatient department. He's really young and promising. Amazing." Lingyun has taught her son very well. Su Lingyun listened to everyone's praises. Although she was shocked, her heart was still full of comfort. She was happier that her son was praised by the villagers than she was. After she spoke a few words of modesty, 2 black cars quickly arrived. The people of the Su family village looked at the 2 cars curiously. Creak. The 2 black cars stopped near the crowd. 4 stalwart men came out of the car, followed by a middle-aged man wearing gold-rimmed glasses. He looked like a gentleman and slowly walked out of the car's door. After the Su villagers saw the middle-aged man, their complexion greatly changed. Some of the able-bodied villagers had already begun to search for weapons that they could use, preparing to fight the enemy. The middle-aged man's complexion slightly changed. He quickly showed a kind smile, waved his hand and said aloud, "Fellow villagers, don't get excited. We didn't come here to make trouble, nor to talk about the land issue. Our boss knows that yesterday's behavior was a bit extreme, so he specially sent me to apologize." As the old village head, Su Changhe was more courageous. He walked a few steps to the front of the middle-aged man and shouted in a deep voice, We don't need your apology. We won't sell our land to you either. I advise you not to waste your time and get the hell out of here. The middle-aged man forced a smile and said, Please don't be angry, old man. I came here with a death order from our boss. If I get the hell out of here, I won't have a good time when I go back. This time, I came here not only to apologize, but also to compensate the families of those injured in yesterday's conflict. Compensation? The villagers of the Sioux family village looked at each other in dismay, and their eyes revealed a look of disbelief. They didn't know what kind of medicine the other party was selling in the gourd. Maybe it was a conspiracy. The middle-aged man continued, Fellow villagers, our boss suddenly had a nightmare last night. He dreamed that he received retribution for the evil he had done before. As a result, a man who has been with our boss for many years suddenly broke into the hospital last night and injured our boss. If it weren't for our boss's serious injury, perhaps he would have personally come to apologize. A strange expression appeared on the faces of the Sioux villagers. How do you want to compensate? Su Changha asked in a deep voice with a disdainful look on his face. The middle-aged man quickly took a big black leather bag from the hands of a middle-aged big man. He raised it and said, Our boss said that we are willing to pay 100,000 yuan as compensation for every injured villager. We will compensate a total of 600,000 yuan for the 6 injured employees. What? All the villagers were shocked. Never in their wildest dreams did they expect that things would take such a big turn. Could it be? The boss of Imperial Water Royal View City, Hong Changin, had his head broken? The middle-aged man said aloud, Are there any family members of the 6 injured here? If so, please come to me to receive the compensation. The Sioux villagers looked at each other in dismay. Suddenly, most of them were envious of the injured villagers. If they knew that the Imperial Water Royal View City Real Estate Company would compensate so much money, they would also be willing to be beaten up. 100,000 yuan. For the Sioux villagers, it was definitely a huge number. Even in the village, anyone who had 100,000 yuan was definitely the richest person. My mom was injured. Su Lingyun summoned her courage and stood up to speak. She didn't care about that 100,000 yuan now. It was because the restaurant she ran had a net profit of more than 100,000 yuan every month. Now, she had also accumulated a lot of money. However, her mother was injured. Since the other party was willing to compensate, how could she refuse? The middle-aged man asked, What else? Su Changha said, The other injured people and their families have all gone to Star City. If you sincerely want to compensate, give me the money from the other 5 families. I'll give it to them when they come back. The middle-aged man hesitated. This isn't good, right? In a flash, the Sioux villagers expressed that the old village head had a very good character. Everyone was relieved to hand it over to him. The middle-aged man nodded. He took out 100,000 yuan from the black leather bag and handed it over to Su Lingyun. Then, he gave the remaining 400,000 yuan to Su Changha. Everyone, we've already paid the money. Our boss asked me to tell you that the plan to occupy your village's farmland and build an industrial park has been abandoned. We won't bother you again in the future. So, let's not interfere with each other in the future. Su Changha looked at the money in his hand and then looked at the sincere middle-aged man. Then he said with a sinking tone, We're all ordinary people. If you don't provoke us, we naturally won't take the initiative to provoke you. Okay. The middle-aged man replied and quickly left by car. The Sioux villagers were talking about it outside the courtyard. Su Lingyun, on the other hand, hurriedly entered the courtyard with the 100,000 yuan in her arms. There was no bank in the countryside, so there was no way to save the money. Su Lingyun came to Tan Xiu's room and saw that Tan Xiu was sleeping soundly. She hesitated and put the money in the drawer of the table. At noon, Tan Xiu woke up from his sleep and learned that the Imperial Water Royal View City had sent people to compensate the injured villagers. He was quite satisfied. As for the 100,000 yuan, Tan Xiu also went to the county town and deposited it into his grandmother's passbook. Originally, he intended to leave some money for his grandmother, but now that there was this 100,000 yuan, he temporarily gave up the idea of giving money. Tan Xiu. Su Ben and Su Quan came to the courtyard and saw Tan Xiao chatting with Mrs. Zhang, so they immediately called out in a hurry. Su Ben was holding a bag in his hand. He usually didn't talk much, but now there was a bit of a smile on his face. Tan Xiao stepped forward and hugged Su Quan as he said with a smile, "Quan, I heard that you sent my grandmother to the county hospital. Thanks a lot." Su Quan said with a smile, "What are you thanking me for? We don't need to be so polite. I originally planned to send my grandmother to Star City, but she didn't agree. She said that she didn't want to give you trouble." Tan Xiao slightly nodded. He looked at the bag in Su Ben's hand and asked with a smile, "Brother Ben, is there a silver dragon grass inside?" Su Ben said, "Yeah. I went home and looked around. I found 16 silver dragon grasses. Also, Su Quan and I had nothing to do this morning, so we went to the mountain and found 12. There are a total of 28 in this bag." Chapter 243. Tan Xiao took the bag and took out all the silver dragon grasses inside. After observing them for a while, he nodded and said, 28 silver dragon grasses, for a total of 28,000 yuan. "Brother Ben, give me your bank account. I'll transfer the money to you now. As for how you and Su Quan divide the money, that's your business." Su Ben and Su Quan looked a bit excited. A few minutes later, Su Ben received 28,000 yuan in his account. "Quan Zi, you found 7 silver dragon grasses on the mountain. I'll transfer 7,000 yuan to you." Su Ben was a practical person and immediately transferred the money to Su Quan. Tan Xiao put the silver dragon grasses in the car. He looked at Su Quan and said, "Quan Zi, I've talked to Brother Ben. I'm going to Star City with him. What about you? Do you want to go with me to Star City?" Su Quan replied without hesitation, "Brother Ben has talked to me. I'm also willing to go." Tan Xiao said with a smile, "All right. I'll arrange the two of you to stay together when the time comes. Brother Ben's character is simple and honest, and he does things steadily. As for you, you're quick-witted, so I'll arrange other things for you later." Su Quan said with a smile, "I'm relieved to follow you." Ring, ring, ring. Just as Tan Xiao was about to speak, his mobile suddenly rang. When he grabbed it and looked at the caller ID, he found that the call was from Han Qingwu. "Hello, Miss Han." Tan Xiao said with a smile. "Tan Xiao, quickly check your score." Heavens! The total score of the college entrance test is 750 points. You actually got 746 points. It's amazing. It's too incredible. You're only 4 points away from a full score. Han Qingwu's trembling voice came from the phone. Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment. He suddenly remembered that he could check the college entrance test score today. Upon hearing Han Qingwu's words, Tan Xiao knew that she had his admission ticket number and had checked it for him. So, he said with a smile, "Miss Han, I told you. I'll definitely give you face in this year's college entrance test. By the way, how did Yuan Chuling and Qing Yannan do?" Han Qingwu quickly said, "I haven't checked their scores yet, but I'm very confident in them now." Tan Xiao, congratulations. Tang Xiao said with a smile, "I also want to thank Teacher Han for sparing no effort to take me in." Han Qingwu smiled and said, "It's good that you know how good I am. Where are you now? In order to celebrate your excellent results, I'll treat you to dinner." "I'm in my hometown in the countryside," said Tan Xiao. "I'll contact you when I return to Star City." "All right," Han Qingwu said. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiao checked his score according to his admission ticket number. He was satisfied that he got full marks for all the other subjects, except for Chinese, which had 4 marks deducted. Ring, ring, ring. Just as Tan Xiao finished checking the scores, his phone rang again. This time, it was Ouyang Lulu who called. "What's up, Lulu?" Tan Xiao was in a good mood as he asked with a smile. Ouyang Lulu quickly asked, "Tan Xiao, the college entrance test scores have come out. What's your score?" Tan Xiao said, 746. Ouyang Lulu was puzzled and asked, "What's the total score? How is it?" Tan Xiao said, "Except for Chinese, which should be my essay, I got full marks for all the other subjects." "What? You mean you only need 4 marks to reach the total score of the college entrance test?" Ouyang Lulu's exclamation came from the phone. That's right. Tan Xiao said with a smile. Ouyang Lulu was shocked and said, Tan Xiao, you're not lying to me, right? Heavens! That's too amazing. I remember you're a science student, right? To have such a high score, I'm afraid you'll be the top science student in Shuangqing province. Tan Xiao said with a smile, it doesn't matter if it's me or not, as long as you can enter Shanghai University. Ouyang Lulu exclaimed in admiration, Tan Xiao, I've always known that you're amazing, but I didn't expect you to be this amazing. When are you coming to Jingmen Island? I'll treat you to a meal to celebrate. Tan Xiao hesitated for a moment before he forced a smile and said, I'll go to Jingmen Island to find you after I'm done with the things here. All right. Ouyang Lulu happily said with a smile. Su Ben and Su Quan, who stood beside Tan Xiao, were dumbfounded and shocked ever since Tan Xiao checked the college entrance test scores. Tan Xiao and Ouyang Lulu ended their conversation on the phone. Both of them had yet to sober up from the shock. They were all educated people, so they naturally understood what it meant for Tan Xiao to get 746 points in the college entrance test. Tang! Su Quan opened his mouth, but Tan Xiao's mobile rang again. Tan Xiao looked at the mobile screen with a forced smile on his face. He looked at Su Quan and shook his head. He then picked up the phone and said, Jingyu, what's the matter? Tan Xiao, your college entrance test scores have come out. Have you checked it? How many points did you get? 746. How many? 746. God. For a full 40 minutes, Tan Xiao received more than 20 calls. Without exception, all of them were asking about Tan Xiao's high score. Even the president of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, Li Hongji, called to inquire. When these people learned that Tan Xiao got 746 points in the college entrance test, each and every one of them was shocked to the point that it was difficult to increase. They all knew that Tan Xiao was amazing. He was amazing in many aspects. But never in their dreams did they expect that Tan Xiao's academic performance was so good to such a terrifying degree. However, from Yuan Chuling and Qing Yannen, Tan Xiao also learned about their college entrance test scores. Yuan Chuling's score was 663 points. According to the previous cutoff line, it was already in the bag for him to pass the undergraduate examination. Even if he couldn't pass the top universities, it wouldn't be a problem for him to pass the exam. As for Qing Yannan, she scored 674 points. Compared to Yuan Chuling, she was more hopeful to enter the key undergraduate examination. At this time, Su Lingyun came out from the kitchen and saw that Tan Xiao was talking with Su Ben and Su Quan. She immediately said with a smile, Su Ben, Su Quan, stay here for lunch today. Xiao, I really want to remember something very important, but I can't remember what it is for the time being. Our family. Tan Xiao interrupted Su Lingyun and said with a smile, Mom, I just checked the score of the college entrance test. The total score is 750 points, and I got 746 points. Su Lingyun stared blankly for a moment. Then, her eyes stared wide with disbelief bursting out from them. She quickly wiped her hands on her apron and rushed to the front of Tan Xiao. She grabbed Tan Xiao's arms and hurriedly shouted, How much? How many points did you get? 746 points. 4 points short of the full score. Su Lingyun stared blankly at Tan Xiao. As she looked at him, 2 lines of tears welled up in her eyes. When she loosened Tan Xiao's arms, she directly squatted on the floor and cried. Tan Xiao squatted down and gently hugged Su Lingyun's shoulders. He knew that his mother was crying tears of joy, so he didn't comfort her. He gently hugged Su Lingyun and let her vent. Su Ben and Su Quan looked at each other and quietly left. After a minute, Su Lingyun stopped crying. She raised her tearful face and excitedly said, Son, I know you're the best. Tan Xiao said with a smile, Mom, you're also the best in my heart. Star City's first public hospital. Sun Wenjing held the examination report in her hand and walked out of the hospital building in a daze. Standing outside the building, the Sun family's young and old were staring at her, staring at the report in her hand. Looking at her expression, the Sun family's young and old had a bad premonition in their hearts. Wenjing, what's the result? Sun Jianhai rushed to Sun Wenjing's front and hurriedly asked. Sun Wenjing handed the examination report to Sun Jianhai and said with a blank expression, "Brother, take a look." Sun Jianhai quickly took out the examination report. When he finished reading it, an incredulous look was revealed on his face. It only lasted for a few seconds before a deep ecstasy climbed up his face. "No cancer cells. The cancer has been cured." Sun Jianjun, Sun Wenmin, and the old lady all looked incredulous. They quickly snatched the inspection report, and when they finished reading it, they were immediately overjoyed. At this moment, Sun Wenjing also sobered up from the shock. Tan Xiu's handsome appearance appeared in her mind. She fiercely waved her fists and called out with a smile, "Tan Xiu, our whole family must thank him. People used to say that he's a divine doctor. Although I know he's very powerful, I didn't fully believe it. But now I believe it. He's definitely a divine doctor even more powerful than other divine doctors." Sun Jianhai heavily nodded and said, "Indeed. He's definitely the most powerful divine doctor in the world to be able to cure middle-stage liver cancer. However, he doesn't want us to publicize it, so we must keep it a secret for him. I'm in favor of his decision. Once the news of him being able to cure cancer is spread out, though it will bring him great benefits, I'm afraid that it will also bring great trouble. Although Tan Xiu doesn't want us to give him any benefits, we still have to repay him for saving our mother's life," said Sun Wenmin. "That's right. Didn't my sis say it? Although he's working in a Chinese medical hospital, he's still a student who just took the college entrance test. If he doesn't do well in the test, I'll ask my connections to let him read a book. I have an old classmate who teaches at a key university in the imperial capital. Her husband is the dean of that university and has a special enrollment quota." Sun Jianhai pondered for a moment before nodding and saying, "Let's do it. Wenjing, call Tan Xiu now and ask him about his score in the college entrance test. If it's not enough, then ask Wenmin to ask her connections." "Understood." Sun Wenjing nodded and dialed Tan Xiu's number. 2 minutes later, a shocked expression appeared on her face after she hung up the phone. Sun Jianhai frowned and asked in a deep voice, "What happened? Is his score too bad?" Sun Wenjing looked at her relatives in front of her. She shook her head and said with a forced smile, "It's not too bad, it's too good. If I didn't believe that Tan Xiu wouldn't lie, I really wouldn't believe that he could get such a high score. 746 points, only 4 points away from the total score." Upon hearing it, everyone in the Sun family was dumbfounded. They were also shocked by the news. After a long while, Sun Jianhai forced a smile and said, "Since we can't help him in this aspect, let's think of another way. Tan Xiu's kindness to our Sun family will be engraved in our hearts for the time being." Quiet Knight's heart has turned cold. It's the last day, and I'm begging my brothers and sisters for the monthly votes. It'll be a waste if I don't vote for them. *. Chapter 244. Late at night, stars twinkled in the night sky. Bursts of breeze blew, bringing a bit of coolness to this scorching summer day. The countryside of Qinghe County was surrounded by mountains and rivers, so the air was fresh. Even the spiritual energy between heaven and earth was much richer than in the city. Tan Xiu was sitting cross-legged on the roof of his house, bathing in the starry sky as he practiced the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. Now that he had reached the peak of the skin-strengthening stage, he could break through to the flesh-strengthening stage at any time. Therefore, no matter how busy he was every day, he would not delay his cultivation. Ring, ring, ring. His cell phone suddenly rang, awakening Tan Xiu from his cultivation. Tan Xiu took out his cell phone. When he saw the number, he was slightly stunned. Then, he suddenly remembered that he had promised Yuan Zhengshen something, but he had not fulfilled it until now. "Uncle Yuan." Tan Xiu called out. Yuan Jingxuan's urgent voice came from the phone. "Tan Xiu, where are you? Can you save little Ling?" Tan Xiu's complexion changed as he hurriedly asked, "What happened to Yuan Chuling? What happened?" Yuan Jingxuan's voice was very low, but it was very clear. "There's an accident in my business. I didn't expect that those foreign groups who covetously want to take away my core technological data would go crazy and attack my various industries. Apart from Little Ling, 2 other company executives were also killed. Those people are too powerful. My hand can't hold it anymore. Tan Xiao asked in a deep voice, Uncle Yuan, where are you now? I'll go find you immediately. Tan Xiao, don't come over now. They have too many people. You'll die if you come over. Yuan Jingxian said urgently. Tan Xiao jumped down from the roof and rushed toward the door. Then, he asked in a deep voice, tell me the address, quickly. Gold Peak District, an abandoned second-hand car trading market. Yuan Zhengxian hesitated for a few minutes before replying in a deep voice. Tan Xiao hung up the phone and immediately called Zhong Tiekue, ordering him to immediately rush to the second-hand car trading market in Gold Peak District to save people. Then he started the Land Rover and quickly rushed to Star City. Saving people is like fighting a fire. Even though he knew that he couldn't drive on the highway with his driving experience, he couldn't care less now. With his skillful driving skills, his speed had already exceeded the illegal speed limit. Star City, Gold Peak District, used car market. Yuan Zhengxian held the pistol and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His left shoulder was pierced by a bullet, and blood kept flowing out. The left side of his face was also cut by a knife, making him look particularly hideous. Around him, there were more than a dozen strong men riddled with scars. Some of them were holding guns, while others were holding knives. They were hiding in dark corners and observing their surroundings. Boss, we will cover you as you rush out. A stocky middle-aged man who had been shot at least twice said with a murderous look on his face. Yuan Jingxian bitterly shook his head. He lowered his voice and said, we have too few people. More than half of us will die if we rush out rashly. Those bastards want to capture me, but I won't let them have their way. As long as we can drag it out a little longer, they'll know to retreat. Another big man frowned and said, Boss, why can't we inform the police? If the police arrive? Shut up. Yuan Jingxian shouted in a low voice. Don't tell me you forgot what we are researching and developing? In case this matter alarms the police, the military will definitely know about it. When that happens, do you think we can keep our experimental results? Even if we will eventually sell the experimental results to the military, it's not the right time. The big man gritted his teeth and nodded. Puff! At this moment, a bullet pierced the glass and hit the big man's head, instantly killing him. Yuan Jingxuan's complexion changed as he shouted in a deep voice, be careful. The sniper's marksmanship is very accurate. Whoever sticks their head out will definitely be killed. Remember, choose the shooting angle according to your position. Don't move your body randomly and don't relax your vigilance. In the periphery of the Gold Peak District used car market, 40 to 50 big men in black suits were cooperating with each other as they rushed inside. Each of them was holding a gun and under the cover of the night, they were looking for targets to shoot. Behind them, in the back of a Volkswagen pickup truck, two foreign big men were watching the scene inside the used car market through binoculars. Finally, one of the foreign big men put down the binoculars and said in English, there's an old saying in China that a cornered beast struggle is futile. Yuan Jingxian is like a turtle in a jar, he can't run away. As long as we catch him, we can extort the core information of the biochemical weapon through torture. Jeff, be prepared. Don't let those Japanese shorties ruin our plan. After you get the core information, immediately evacuate according to the arranged route. Our plan is to act together with those Japanese shorties, but they didn't show up tonight, said Jeff. I suspect that they want our people and Yuan Zhengxian to kill each other, so that they can take advantage of the situation. There's also a saying in China, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Boss said that the most cunning and untrustworthy people in the world are the Japanese shorties. I'm afraid it won't be safe if we evacuate according to the previously planned route. Tagore, I've redrawn the evacuation route. It's absolutely safe. Tagore frowned and indifferently said, my duty is to grab the core information of the biochemical weapon. As for how to transport it back, that's your responsibility. After I give you the information, this matter will have nothing to do with me anymore. Jeff shrugged his shoulders and picked up the binoculars again to look inside the second-hand car market. Puff, puff, faint gunshots were heard coming from the second-hand car market. In this fierce gunfight, The guns of both sides were equipped with silencers. Therefore, even though the gunfight was fierce, it still didn't attract the attention of outsiders. Furthermore, this second-hand car market had been relocated half a year ago. Usually it was filled with scrapped cars. In the pickup truck, Tagore sneered and said, "The experts I brought are from the Grim Reaper Scythe Mercenary Corps. They are all seasoned veterans and have experienced countless battles. Just relying on Yuan Jingxuan's men is like a mantis trying to stop a chariot and overestimating their own capabilities. I remember someone once said that this country is like a sleeping lion in peacetime, and the people of this country are also like obedient babies in swaddling clothes. You know, Jeff, we've killed at least a dozen of Yuan Jingxuan's men so far, but only 2 of my men died. We can kill all of Yuan Jingxuan's men and capture him in 10 minutes at most." Jeff shrugged his shoulders and lightly said, "I've heard of the Grim Reaper Scythe Mercenary Corps. They may not be ranked in the top 10 in the mercenary world, but their combat power is extremely amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing your men deal with them in 10 minutes. Tagore showed his white teeth and grinned. "Do you want to take a gamble? If my men can't deal with them in 10 minutes, I'll give you $100,000. If they can, give me that gentle and lovely Japanese chick you just got." Jeff rolled his eyes and indifferently said, "Tagore, arrogant people often die quickly. I advise you to be cautious. If you don't regret it, I'll take the $100,000. Tagore confidently said, "I, Blood Lion Tagore, will never go back on my words. I'll take that Japanese chick of yours." The 2 of them did not realize that 100 meters away from them, a ghostly figure was silently approaching them. In the night, those figures were faintly discernible. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to find them. Half a minute later, a throwing knife pierced the back of Jeff's neck, while a golden silk rope strangled Tagore's throat. A strong and fierce punch hit Jeff's temple. The man who was full of confidence just now directly fainted. 2 people in a group. Cooperate with each other and clean up those ants. Zhong Tiekue quickly issued an order through the wireless earpiece. Following his gesture, 18 of them quickly divided into 9 groups and quietly besieged the Grim Reaper Scythe Mercenary Corps members in a fan-shaped rout. They had no firearms in their hands, but what they held in their hands were cold daggers. Puff! The sound of the dagger cutting the throat and piercing the heart didn't alarm the others. In just 2 minutes, more than 10 members of the Grim Reaper Scythe Mercenary Corps had become ghosts under their blades. The firearms in the hands of the Grim Reaper Scythe Mercenary Corps members were also taken by Zhong Tiekue and his men. "Enemy!" Suddenly, an angry roar came from a member of the Grim Reaper Scythe Mercenary Corps. But in the next half a second, his throat was cut and the dagger pierced his heart. The light machine gun in his hand also fell into the hands of others. "Captain, the enemy has at least 30 people. Now that we've been exposed, what's the next step of the plan?" A member's voice came out of the wireless earpiece. Zhong Tiekue pondered for a moment and said in a deep voice, "Looking at their appearance, they haven't caught Yuan Jingxian yet. All teams gather in the 11 o'clock direction. We'll kill our way out and meet up with Yuan Jingxian inside. Boss has ordered us to ensure Yuan Jingxuan's safety no matter what the cost is." The other party's reply came out of the wireless earpiece. Zhong Tiekue glanced at the unconscious Tagore. The dagger in his hand instantly cut his hamstring. The moment he woke up from the pain, Zhong Tiekue knocked him out again. Then, he quickly stuffed Tagore's body into a hidden corner and covered each other with another member as they rushed toward the 11 o'clock direction. Tagore was well aware of the strength of the Grim Reaper Scythe Mercenary Corps members. But he didn't expect that the 20 people who suddenly killed their way would be even more terrifying. Tagore knew the former nickname of these 20 people. He would probably immediately issue a retreat order and flee for his life. Chapter 245. It must be noted that Zhong Tiekue and the other 20 men had received devilish training since they were very young. When they grew up, they were sent abroad and inserted into a terrifying and dangerous organization. They had experienced countless baptisms of war and rolled in mountains of corpses and seas of blood. If any of them were to be thrown into the army, they would probably become the king of the army. At this moment, The members of the Grim Reaper Scythe gang had been stunned by the sudden sneak attack. They called to Gore through the wireless headset, but no one responded at all. Retreat! Retreat! The voices of their companions constantly came from the headset of the Grim Reaper Scythe gang members. The strong members didn't have the intention to continue fighting and quickly retreated to the back. When they passed by the place, they found the bodies of their companions. Within half a minute, 7 or 8 members of the Grim Reaper Scythe gang fell down. Several of them were wounded, but they desperately ran away. Zhong Tiekue and the other members didn't chase after them. They only sent 2 people to quietly follow those members of the Grim Reaper Scythe gang. The rest of them quickly rushed inside. At the same time, in a hidden corner, Zhong Tiekue dialed the number given by Tan Xiao. Inside the second-hand car trading market, Yuan Jingxuan's brows slightly wrinkled. It had been several minutes, but there was no enemy shooting. Even the outside was quiet, without the slightest movement. The quietness in the midst of danger made him even more worried. Buzz, 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 Yuan Jingxuan's complexion changed. He found that it was his mobile phone that was vibrating. He quickly grabbed it and saw the unfamiliar number on the screen. He pondered for a moment before he resolutely picked it up and asked in a low voice, "Who is it?" "My name is Zhong Tiekue. The boss sent us to support. The enemy has retreated. We're going to join you immediately." "Who's your boss?" Yuan Jingxuan's expression moved and hurriedly asked. "Tan Xiao," Zhong Tiekue said. Yuan Jingxian was silent for a few seconds and then asked, "How can I believe you?" "Call my boss. He'll tell you," Zhong Tiekue said in a deep voice. "All right." Yuan Jingxian hung up and dialed Tan Xiao's number. On the highway, the Land Rover SUV that Tan Xiao was driving had exceeded 180 kilometers per hour. Because it was nighttime, there were very few cars on the highway. However, the drivers of some cars that he passed were shocked by Tan Xiao's speed. "Tan Xiao, have you sent anyone to support me?" Tan Xiao received a call from Yuan Jingxian and heard the inquiry coming from the other side of the phone. "That's right, there should be 20 people. The leader was Zhong Tiekue. Have they arrived?" "Yes. Thank you." "You're welcome." After hanging up the phone, Yuan Jingxian quickly greeted his subordinates and dialed Zhong Tiekue's number to let them in. Very soon, both sides met up. After some questioning, Zhong Tiekue came before Yuan Jingxian and asked in a deep voice, "Are you injured?" Yuan Jingxian nodded bitterly. He was shot in the shoulder. He lost quite a lot of blood. Zhong Tiekue said, "Bear with it. I'll help you take the bullet out." Yuan Jingxian quickly said, "Don't worry, I can still endure it." "What about the foreign enemies? Have they really retreated?" Zhong Tiekue said, "If my guess is correct, the first 2 people we dealt with were the foreign team's commanders. Without a leader, we killed some of their people, so they retreated. Don't worry. I've sent some people to follow them. Wait for the boss to come, then we'll deal with the remaining survivors." Yuan Jingxuan's pupils shrunk as he looked at Zhong Tiekue and the dozens of stalwart men in horror. He had tasted the fierceness of those enemies. He originally had nearly 30 trusted men, but after a night of fighting, half of them were dead, and the rest were all injured. But looking at these stalwart men in front of him, they didn't have any injuries. Moreover, the cold aura emanating from them made him secretly feel a chill inside. "Go outside and see the situation." Yuan Jingxian tried his best to calm his emotions and let Zhong Tiekue tear his clothes. Then he ordered several of his men who were not seriously injured. "Understood." Those men glanced at each other and carefully lurked outside. Zhong Tiekue tore Yuan Jingxuan's clothes and took out a lighter from his pocket to ignite the knife tip. Half a minute later, he said in a deep voice, "Endure it." "All right." Yuan Jingxian nodded. Zhong Tiekue's eyes slightly squinted. The knife tip tore the flesh of the bullet hole and quickly dug out a bullet head under Yuan Jingxuan's wretched expression. Then, Zhong Tiekue quickly took out a needle and thread from his pocket to suture Yuan Jingxuan's wound. He also took out a roll of gauze from his pocket and bandaged it for him. Huff! Yuan Jingxian felt a burning pain in his wound, but he was greatly relieved inwardly. He exclaimed, I didn't expect you to carry a needle and thread and gauze with you. You should have learned professional medical skills, right? We were injured every 2 or 3 days in the past. If we didn't carry these life-saving things, I'm afraid we would have died countless times already, said Zhong Tiekue coldly. Injured every 2 or 3 days. Life-saving things? Yuan Jingxian looked at Zhong Tiekue's cold expression and his heartbeat sped up. Suddenly, he was deeply curious about Zhong Tiekue and the others. He wanted to know who Zhong Tiekue and the others were. He also wanted to know how Tan Xiu had such a group of men. Zhong Tiekue treated Yuan Jingshuan's wound and ordered the others to treat Yuan Jingshuan's men. Then he called Tan Xiu and asked for the next instruction. But the answer he got was to wait for further instructions. Star City Expressway Junction, Tan Xiu quickly drove into the toll collection area. Just as he paid the fee and left the toll booth, 2 police cars roared and chased after him. Tan Xiu had important things to do, so he naturally didn't want to deal with the police. He sped up and quickly left the police cars behind him. Furthermore, after he entered the urban area, he casually parked his car in a remote place and quickly left. In a pitch-black alley, Tan Xiu dialed Wolfhead's cell number. The call was connected after it rang 3 times. Wolfhead? It's me. Wolfhead's voice came. Tan Xiu said, since you're willing to pledge your allegiance to me, then I'll test you once. Remember, you must keep the things I've told you strictly confidential. Understood. Wolfhead replied in a deep voice. Tan Xiu said, a businessman friend of mine is being chased by a group of foreign assassins. My other men had already rescued my merchant friends, but more than 20 of them had managed to escape. You must immediately rush to the Baidu River's sand ferry. There's an abandoned factory nearby. Get rid of them for me. Foreign assassins? Wolfhead frowned as a hesitant look appeared on his face. Tan Xiu said in a deep voice, I can assure you that they're definitely foreign assassins. Although I haven't figured out their specific identity, they all have a sickle symbol on them. My men told me that they should be members of the Grim Reaper Scythe Gang. Also, they have firearms on them, so pay attention to your safety. The Grim Reaper Scythe Gang? A thick killing intent burst out from Wolfhead's eyes. He knew of the Yongbing mercenary group, and he also knew that this group had a bad reputation in the mercenary world. They had committed countless murders. The Grim Reaper Scythe Gang was also on the list of the Interpol and the peacekeeping forces. Furthermore, when he was on a mission abroad, although he did not fight with the Grim Reaper Scythe mercenaries, 2 of his comrades had died in the hands of the Grim Reaper Scythe mercenaries. I guarantee that I'll complete the mission, Wolfhead replied. Tan Xiu hung up the phone. He didn't rush to meet up with Yuan Jingxian and Zhong Tiekue. Instead, he stopped a taxi on the roadside and quickly rushed to the Baidu River's sand ferry. Wolfhead and the rest of the retired soldiers only had a total of 12 people in Star City. Although Tan Xiu wanted to test them, he also wanted to ensure their safety. This world was not like the immortal world. In the immortal world, let alone ordinary people, even the immortal world's powerhouses could die at any time. But here, life was very important, especially for retired soldiers like Wolfhead. Some special department of the state was secretly monitoring them. In case they all died in the enemy's hands, he was afraid that he would also be in trouble. Furthermore, if his guess was correct, Yuan Chuling's kidnapping should be done by these people. If he could deal with these people, he could find Yuan Chuling's whereabouts and rescue him. This was Tan Xiu's main purpose. Creek. The taxi stopped 2 kilometers away from the Yunsha ferry terminal. The middle-aged driver took the money from Tan Xiu and curiously said, "Little brother, this place is very desolate. What are you doing here in the middle of the night?" Tan Xiu took the change from the taxi driver and lightly said, "I lost something here during the day, so I want to see if I can find it." "Is it something important?" The taxi driver was surprised. "Very important," Tan Xiu said. The taxi driver suddenly understood and sighed. "It seems that it is indeed very important. Otherwise, you wouldn't have run here in the middle of the night. All right, good luck." As the taxi left, Tan Xiu identified the direction and quickly dashed there. Soon, his eyes locked onto a pitch-black abandoned factory. He didn't follow the road but slipped into the surrounding grass overgrown with weeds. 2 minutes later, Tan Xiu was keenly aware that 4 figures were stealthily lurking toward the abandoned factory 500 to 600 meters away from him. Those 4 people were dressed in black and seemed to be integrated with the night. If it wasn't for his keen eyes and careful observation, it would have been very difficult to find them. Those enemies have just participated in a fight and lost miserably. They must be very vigilant now that they are here. If Wolfhead and the others act rashly, I'm afraid they will suffer heavy losses. Tan Xiu silently thought. Chapter 246. The night was quiet under the stars, but there was a hidden danger. There seemed to be a faint smell of blood in the gentle wind. Wolfhead and 11 retired soldiers were divided into 3 groups and moved toward the abandoned factory. With Mitsubishi Army knives in their mouths, they were like wolves in the grass, crawling forward. They didn't find Tan Xiu behind them, nor did they find 2 strong men lying in the grass near them, but they had already found them. 8 o'clock, 2 sentries in the open, and a hidden sentry is hiding behind a hole in the wall 12 meters to the left. Group 2, get close to them and kill them. Wolfhead, lying in the grass, observed for a long time through the telescope, and then gave the order. Roger. The voice of Group 2 came from the wireless headset. Soon, 4 retired soldiers quietly lurked, like raccoons in the night. They used half a minute to appear near the 2 sentries. One of them, with a Mitsubishi Army knife in his mouth, moved along the wall, flipped over from the other side, and quietly appeared behind the hidden sentry. The knife cut through the throat of the hidden sentry, and the calloused big hand covered his mouth. After the tip of the knife changed direction and deeply pierced the heart of the hidden sentry, the mercenary of Grimm's Sickle Mercenary Corps struggled a few times, and then stopped moving. Sickle tattoo? The retired soldier opened the collar of the hidden sentry, and after seeing the sickle-shaped tattoo, he had already confirmed the identity of the hidden sentry. At the same time, the other 3 retired soldiers launched a thunderous attack. They acted neatly, and in just 2 breaths, they eliminated the 2 hidden sentry. Wolfhead, the enemy is a member of Grimm's Sickle Mercenary Corps, I have confirmed it. The voice from the wireless headset made Wolfhead's killing intent sore. Wolfhead, hiding in the dark corner with the telescope in his hand, ordered, observe whether there are still sentries, and eliminate all the enemies in the periphery. A few minutes later, all 6 sentries were eliminated, and after Wolfhead and others got 2 sniper rifles and 4 light machine guns, they slowly surrounded the deepest factory. At this moment, the phone in his pocket suddenly vibrated. When he hid, he grabbed the phone and looked at it, and then he frowned deeply. On the screen of the phone, there was an open text message, and there was a row of words. There are 2 people behind you, they are on our side. They will assist you in the attack. Wolfhead turned around. Just as he was about to use the binoculars to observe the scene behind him, 2 figures had silently appeared on both sides of him. Don't move, we're on the same side. Wolfhead's complexion changed greatly and he immediately shouted through the wireless headset. With his back against the wall, Wolfhead looked at the 2 strong men with cold expressions, and a wave of shock rose in his heart. One must know that he was already on high alert. Regardless of whether it was in front of him or behind him, he was carefully observing. However, he did not expect that someone would appear beside him without him noticing. An expert. He was definitely an expert that was even more terrifying than him. How should I address you? Wolfhead suppressed the shock in his heart and asked in a low voice. Shark. Forest Wolf. The 2 strong men replied coldly. The names they reported were the nicknames they had used when they were fighting in foreign countries. Wolfhead was stunned. He felt that these 2 names were somewhat familiar. Suddenly, his complexion greatly changed, and his breathing became a bit hurried as he asked, International mercenary sharks? Shark had slaughtered the rebel leader Hagand in Africa, killed nearly 100 of his soldiers, and successfully escaped? And Forest Wolf, you're the golden god of killing of the Wolves Mercenary Corps? Shark and Forest Wolf glanced at each other and looked at Wolfhead with a somewhat surprised expression. You know us? Shark asked in a low voice. Wolfhead looked at the 2 men incredulously. He did not expect that it was really them. It must be noted that these two guys were extremely terrifying figures in the world. Any one of them could cause great turmoil. How could they be in the country? How did they become Tan Xiu's men? Could it be? They used to be Tan Xiu's men, and everything they did abroad was all instructed by Tan Xiu? In an instant, Wolfhead was even more curious about Tan Xiu's identity. A black shadow quietly appeared beside them. At the moment when they tensed up, Tan Xiu's voice came into their ears. "It's me, boss." Upon seeing that it was Tan Xiu, they immediately relaxed. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "Let me tell you some bad news. We've been surrounded." Wolfhead was startled and asked in a low voice, "What happened? We didn't alert the people inside, did we? We also observed the rear when we lurked here, but we didn't find." His words came to an abrupt end. Although they had observed the rear, they didn't even find Tan Xiu, Shark, and Forest Wolf. Those people came later. Tan Xiu said, "There are more than 40 of them, all wearing black knight suits and fully armed. Right now, we have two choices. First, we kill our way in and kill the people inside before launching a counterattack. Second, deal with the people outside first, and then clean up the people inside. What do you think we should choose?" Wolfhead glanced at Shark and Forest Wolf and didn't speak. Although he was powerful, he didn't have the confidence to win if he fought with Shark and Forest Wolf. Shark pondered for a moment and then slowly said, "Boss, you decide. We'll obey your orders." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "If we deal with the people outside first, I'm afraid we'll alert the enemies inside. Our main purpose this time is to kill the enemies, but more importantly, to rescue my friend. I suspect that my friend was kidnapped by the people inside. Therefore, we must sneak inside and deal with the people inside first, and then we'll clean up the people outside." "Boss, please issue the battle plan," said Wolfhead. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "Wolfhead, I'll leave the command of the team to you. The two of them will also be under your command in this operation. I'll be responsible for the assassination and rescue. You don't need to worry about me." "All right." Wolfhead was slightly excited inwardly. After all, experts like Shark and Forest Wolf were under his command, giving him full confidence in this battle. This factory is very big, and there are a total of 22 people inside. 2 of them are at the entrance, and they are responsible for guarding the place. The others are resting inside. I'll be responsible for killing the 2 enemies who are on guard. I'll leave the rest to you." "How did you know, boss?" Wolfhead was surprised. Tan Xiu interrupted him and lightly said, "You don't need to know how I know about the situation inside. Just remember that I'm telling the truth." Recalling Tan Xiu's strength, Wolfhead slowly nodded and told him the temporary battle plan he had thought of inwardly, and then issued the attack order. The factory's entrance was a pair of heavy iron gates. At this moment, the big iron gates were closed, and 2 foreign mercenaries holding light machine guns were talking about what happened tonight in a low voice. Their commander was missing and their superior was killed, leaving them at a loss. Tan Xiu flew up and heavily kicked the 2 big iron gates. This time, he exerted all his strength. Hence, the 2 big iron gates crashed down and the 2 foreign mercenaries were caught off guard. Even if they didn't die, the 2 foreign mercenaries would be crippled. Tut, tut, tut. 4 light machine guns and 2 sniper rifles opened fire almost at the next moment. More than a dozen mercenaries of the Grim Reaper's Scythe mercenary corps gathered together in the factory were shot dead before they could react. On the other side, Tan Xiu had quietly hidden at the factory's window. Because there was an office in the factory, he had already used his spiritual sense to observe that Yuan Chuling was tied inside. And on the sofa in the office, a big black man was wiping a dagger in his hand at the moment. In addition, there was also a foreign mercenary in the toilet. There were 4 other mercenaries who were not killed by the gun. At this time, the 4 mercenaries had already reacted and held their guns to fight back. Swish, the glass of the factory's window was smashed. Tan Xiu instantly passed through and sprinted in the direction of the toilet at an extremely fast speed. The moment the big foreign man in the toilet stepped out of the toilet with a gun, a sharp Mitsubishi Army knife pierced his heart. Immediately, Tan Xiu appeared outside the door of the office. Through his spiritual sense, he observed that the foreign mercenary with a dagger had already grabbed a pistol and stood up, and quickly approached the inner side door. Bang! After the other party's body was stuck to the door, Tan Xiu punched through the door and hit the foreign mercenary's body. At the moment when the other party flew backward, Tan Xiu had already blasted the door open and sprinted to the other party's body. The knife rose and fell. The other party was killed by Tan Xiu. After Yuan Chuling, who was tied to the chair, saw the scene in front of him, he was so surprised that his eyes almost popped out. Tan Xiu's violent strength and ruthless attack made Yuan Chuling look at Tan Xiu as if he was looking at a strange monster. If his mouth was not taped, he really wanted to loudly ask Tan Xiu, "Is this really you?" Tan Xiu faintly smiled and looked at the shocked expression on Yuan Chuling's face. He walked forward and tore the tape on his mouth. He then used a Mitsubishi Army knife to cut off the rope tied to his body and said, "Wait in this room first. The fight is still going on outside. You'll be in danger if you go out rashly. If you have anything to say, wait until the enemy outside is dealt with first." "Alright." Yuan Chuling hesitated for a moment before he nodded silently. Tan Xiu grabbed the pistol on the ground and flashed out of the office. He found that 2 of the 4 stubborn foreign mercenaries had been killed, while the other 2 were hiding in the corner and fighting back. The positions of those 2 people were completely exposed in front of Tan Xiu. Almost without hesitation, Tan Xiu fired 4 shots at the 2 people. Each shot was a headshot. Bush, 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 bush. One figure after another quickly gathered toward Tang Xiu. Wolfhead looked at the foreign man who was shot dead and praised, "If boss joins the army, he'll definitely be the best sharpshooter in the army." Chapter 247. Tan Xiu said with a faint smile, "You're not bad. I can see that these enemies are very powerful, but they don't have much ability to fight back in front of you. Get ready. Put away their guns and wait for the enemies outside to attack." Wolfhead hesitated for a moment and said, "Boss, I think it's better to take the initiative to attack instead of passively defending." Tan Xiu shook his head. He took out his cell phone and dialed Zhong Tiekui's number, asking, "How long will it take?" 10 minutes at most." "All right." Tan Xiu hung up the phone. Killing intent surged in his eyes as he said in a heavy tone, "The others will arrive in 10 minutes at most. Let's defend first. If they immediately attack, we'll fight back. I hate it when the enemies come to our territory and kill our people. Hence, we must make all the enemies stay." "Boss, the Grim Reaper side has a total of more than 40 people. They have maintained this number for more than 10 years. We've killed more than 20 of them, but you said there are more than 40 people behind. I suspect that the people behind are not only from the Grim Reaper scythe. Those people from the Grim Reaper scythe should be dead," said Shark in a heavy tone. "We killed more than 20 of them before, and we also killed more than 20 of them here. Therefore, the 40 people outside should be people from other forces. No matter who they are, we'll take their lives as long as they dare to shoot at us first," said Tan Xiu lightly. "Remember my words, I won't attack unless I'm attacked. But if they do, I'll make them pay 100-fold. Wolfhead licked his lips. He suddenly felt that his future life would be very wonderful if he followed Tan Xiu. He was used to living a life of licking blood on the edge of a blade and a hail of bullets. Living as an ordinary person for more than half a year had tortured him to the core. Tonight was the new starting point for him to return to his wonderful days. Outside the abandoned factory, Ichiro Yamamoto was observing the situation inside with binoculars. Beside him was a masked woman with an excellent figure who exuded a chilling aura. Behind the 2 of them were 4 black-clothed masked men with knives on their backs. They looked like Japanese ninjas from TV shows. "Kuriko, your target is Tagore. I want him alive, not dead." Ichiro Yamamoto put away the binoculars and spoke in a deep voice. The masked woman said in a cold voice, "I'll kill myself if I can't complete the task." Ichiro Yamamoto shook his head and said, "You don't need to promise me anything. Remember, you are the only heir of the Yamamoto clan, and also the future leader of the North Star One Blade School. No matter who dies, you cannot die." The masked woman remained silent, but the determination in her eyes was extremely strong. Yamamoto Ichiro sighed inwardly and waved his hand to give the order, "Attack! Kill the people from the Grim Reaper Scythe organization and seize Yuan Jingxian." In an instant, in the darkness of the night, many figures silently snuck into the factory. Their movement skills were very strange. 3 people in a group, and they cooperated with each other. Soon, they arrived at the deepest part of the factory. Yamamoto Ichiro was still dozens of meters away from the factory when he stopped and shouted through the wireless earpiece. In front of him, the 2 corpses of the Grim Reaper Scythe mercenary corps were still warm. He just died. There was a wound on his neck and his heart was pierced. Someone had killed them with a Mitsubishi Army knife. There were footprints on the ground, so 2 or 3 people should have killed them. The other party's strength is very strong, at least extremely good at assassination. "Because these 2 people should be sentries," said the masked woman in a deep voice. Yamamoto Ichiro said in a deep voice, "Check the surrounding situation and see if there are any corpses of the Grim Reaper Scythe mercenary corps." "Reporting, we found a corpse." "Reporting, we found 2 corpses." "Reporting, we found a corpse." The voice was transmitted to Yamamoto Ichiro's ears through the wireless earpiece. Yamamoto Ichiro's expression was a bit unsightly. He had sent some people to keep an eye on the Grim Reaper Scythe mercenary corps. He received the report that the Grim Reaper Scythe organization had returned with only 20 people left. He thought that Yuan Jingxian had been caught, and the Grim Reaper Scythe organization had suffered heavy losses to launch a surprise attack on them. He could destroy them and become the final winner. But the sudden turn of events caused him to be at a loss as to what to do. Yamamoto Ichiro thought for half a minute before he hid behind a big tree and shouted, "Tagore, are you still alive? I'm Yamamoto Ichiro." In the factory. Upon hearing the voice coming from the outside, Tan Shio frowned deeply. He turned to look at the others and asked, "Yamamoto Ichiro? The Japanese shorty?" A chilling light flashed in Wolfhead's eyes as he said in a deep voice, "He's the chief steward of the Yamamoto clan of Japan. His status is very honorable. Furthermore, he also has another identity. He's an expert of the North Star One-Blade School." Tan Shio didn't have a good impression of the Japanese shorty. The people of this country were very aggressive and morbid. Throughout history, they were a nation that bullied the weak and feared the strong. In the past, they had invaded Huaxia, leaving behind a rain of blood on this land. Tan Shio took out his mobile and called Yuan Jingxian. From him, he learned that the Japanese shorty was also one of the forces that tried to rob his core information. "Get ready to make them stay." Tan Shio coldly issued the order. Outside, Yamamoto Ichiro frowned deeply. There was no reply from the other side, giving him a bad premonition. However, he was arrogant by nature, and the people he brought this time were all experts of the North Star One-Blade School. Therefore, after waiting for 2 minutes, he immediately issued the order to advance. Flames swallowed and spat out. 4 ninjas of the North Star One-Blade School were directly shot and killed by the sniper rifle. "Baka, be careful," Yamamoto Ichiro cursed. He took out a pistol from his waist and then approached the factory. The gunfight began. Both sides were firing, but the situation remained in a deadlock. The people in the warehouse did not come out, and the experts brought by Yamamoto Ichiro were unable to break through the net of firepower and enter the factory. At the moment when Yamamoto Ichiro was furious, the 2 ninjas beside him suddenly fell to the ground. The back of their heads were pierced by bullets and died directly. What? Yamamoto Ichiro never dreamed that there would be enemies behind them. Fear rose in his heart. Before he could issue the order to retreat, ghostly figures rushed out from the factory. The firepower was several times stronger than before. "Baka, quickly retreat. Let's kill them all." Yamamoto Ichiro panicked. He recalled an old saying in China, "A turtle in a jar." He had a feeling that they were like a turtle in a jar. A strange figure appeared beside Yamamoto Ichiro. The masked woman said in a deep voice, "Sir, leave with me." Yamamoto Ichiro pushed the masked woman away and cursed, "Baka, women are just timid. Even if the enemy has surrounded us, we still have to kill our way out. Everyone, Gather around me. Gather around me. Stupid! The masked woman shouted in a low voice, and her figure instantly disappeared from where she stood. At this moment, Tang Xiu had already rushed out of the factory and fired 3 shots in a row, killing 3 ninjas from the Japanese. Just as he was looking for the enemy's leader, he suddenly frowned. In the shroud of his divine sense, he found that those ninjas were rushing in one direction. Only one vigorous figure rushed to the side. Moreover, the other party's speed was extremely fast. Apart from the few cultivators he knew, he had never seen anyone with such a fast speed. Want to escape? Tan Xiu's figure flickered and flashed toward the masked woman. 10 seconds later, Tan Xiu had blocked the path of the masked woman. The muzzle in his hand was also aimed at her. As he pulled the trigger, the bullets whistled. Ding, ding, ding. The 3 bullets were blocked by a crescent-shaped machete. Sparks splashed everywhere. The masked woman's footsteps were strange. She constantly flashed and rushed 7 or 8 meters away to the side. Tan Xiu's expression turned serious. The other party was able to catch the trajectory of the bullets and was able to escape at the moment of blocking. It showed that the other party's strength was more powerful than he had imagined. You can't escape. Surrender if you don't want to die. Tan Xiu stuffed the pistol into his pocket. He grabbed the Mitsubishi Army knife and rushed toward the masked woman. His speed was nearly twice faster than the masked woman. In just a few breaths, he blocked her again. The masked woman shouted. The crescent-shaped machete in her hand turned into layers of blade shadows and slashed toward Tan Xiu. Her swordsmanship was extremely strange. She attacked directly at the vital parts of Tan Xiu's body. Ding, ding, ding. Tan Xiu kept blocking with his dagger while dodging. In the blink of an eye, the dagger in his hand had already been chipped. Pumph! Tang Xiu's entire body was filled with star force. The moment the other party stopped brandishing the saber, his figure had already dashed to the front of the masked woman like a shadow. The Mitsubishi Army knife stabbed her left shoulder when the other party dodged his attack. Tan Xiu's other fist also hit the masked woman's abdomen. Bang! The masked woman's body was thrown backward. She spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. Tan Xiu flashed and appeared in front of the masked woman. He quickly sealed several of her vital acupoints and picked her up. I told you, you can't escape. Tang Xiu reached out and tore off the veil of the masked woman. What made him stunned was that this masked woman was very beautiful, and there was a fingernail-sized butterfly pattern tattooed on her glabella. The tattoo, coupled with her beauty, made her look particularly enchanting. Kill me, the masked woman said in a cold voice. Although she was shocked that she couldn't move, she was already prepared to die since she was in the enemy's hands. At this moment, what she regretted most was that her father had forced her to take out the poison sac in her teeth a year ago. Tan Xiu sneered and said, "Do you want to die? It'll be very difficult for you to die in my hands. I forgot to tell you that I have an identity as a doctor. Even if someone bites their tongue to commit suicide in front of me, or cuts their throat with a knife, or pierces their heart, I can still let them live for a few more hours. So, give up the idea of suicide, or I'll let you taste the most vicious and painful taste in the world in the last few hours of your life." Chapter 248. The masked woman slowly closed her eyes. She was confident in her own strength, yet she was defeated by Tan Xiu. Furthermore, the opponent's means were too strange, and she didn't know whether he was telling the truth or not. It was like a raging fire burning her heart. Becoming a prisoner was the most painful thing in her life. On the other side, the battle ended quickly. Yamamoto Ichiro was shot dead. Among the 40 ninjas, except for 4 or 5 who were injured and lost their ability to resist, the rest were all killed. As for Tan Xiu's men, except for 2 who were injured, the rest were intact. "Boss, how should we deal with them?" Upon seeing Tan Xiu's arrival, Zhong Tiekue glanced at Tan Xiu's Kawako and asked in a deep voice, "Kill them all." Tan Xiu said lightly, "Understood." Zhong Tiekue replied and was about to kill them. "Wait!" Lao Zi, whose eyes had been closed, suddenly opened them and cried out. Tan Xiu gestured to Zhong Tiekue and casually threw Kawako on the ground. Then he lightly said, "What do you want to say?" Kawako stared at Tan Shio and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" "You don't need to know who we are. You only need to know that you're our enemies," said Tan Shio lightly. "Yuan Jingxian is my friend. If you want to deal with him, you'll naturally be attacked by me." Kawako nodded and glanced at the 4 or 5 seriously injured ninjas. After pondering for a few seconds, he looked at Tan Shio again and said, "I promise you one condition. Let them go." "Condition?" Tan Shio sneered. "What condition can you promise me?" "You can choose one of the 2 options," said Kawako in a deep voice. "First, I'll give you a ransom and you let them go. Second, I'll be your slave for 3 years and you let them go." "Ransom? Slave? I can understand if it's a ransom," Tan Shio said incredulously. "You should be from the Yamamoto family, right? And these ninjas should be from the North Star One-Blade School. But I don't think I've heard of slaves in this day and age." Wolfhead, who was at the side, suddenly raised his brows and quickly came to Tan Shio's side, saying, "Boss, I know about the North Star One-Blade School. This sect is very abnormal and the people inside are extremely cruel, but they also have iron rules. If the successor of the North Star One-Blade School were to fall into the hands of the enemy, they could agree to be the enemy's slave for 3 years in order to survive. However, after 3 years, the enemy would have to release them. Otherwise, the North Star One-Blade School will risk the destruction of their entire school to take revenge." Tan Shio said in surprise, "Isn't this North Star One-Blade style too weird?" Wolfhead forced a smile and said, "How can ordinary people understand the sick mentality of the Japanese dwarves? I feel that since we have killed so many of their people, we might as well kill them all. It will save us trouble in the future." Tan Shio pondered for a moment before he looked at Kawako and said, "How much ransom is your Yamamoto family and North Star One-Blade School willing to pay for your lives?" Kawako said, "My life is worth $300 million US, and theirs is worth $50 million US. The 5 of them are worth $250 million US. That's a total of $550 million US. $550 million US? More than 3 billion renminbi? Tan Shio's pupils shrunk as he looked at Kawako in disbelief. Although he was rich and his total assets were far more than 3 billion renminbi, but if he could get it, it would definitely solve his financial crisis immediately. Pa. Tan Shio took out a cigarette from his pocket, while Dragonhead quickly took out a lighter and lit it for him. After taking a deep puff, Tan Shio slowly said, "You're the successor of the Yamamoto family? And also the future sect master of the One-Blade School?" "That's right," said Kawako. Tan Shio said with a smile, "How about changing the conditions?" Kawako frowned and said, "I'll only accept one of these 2 conditions. Otherwise, you can kill us all now." "Let me finish first before you decide whether to agree or not," said Tan Shio. Kawako fell into silence. Tan Shio said, "If you become my subordinate, you'll be Tan Shio's man in the future. I won't restrict your freedom, and I'll also let you go back to Japan. But you'll have to carry out my orders in the future." "Dream on," Kawako said with a cold voice. Tan Shio lightly said, "I won't let you be my subordinate for nothing. I'll give you some benefits. And these benefits are something that countless people can only dream of." Kawako shook his head and said, "I don't lack anything. You don't need to waste your efforts to buy me." Tan Shio made a gesture to the people around him, and they immediately dispersed to the surroundings. When only Tan Shio and Kawako were left, Tan Shio slowly asked, "What do you think of my strength?" Kawako's pupils shrunk as he nodded and said, "Very strong. Even the sect master may not be stronger than you." Tan Shio said, "Be my subordinate and I'll make your strength soar. I guarantee that if you cultivate according to my method, your strength will increase by 10 times in 3 years at most." "You can't be 10 times stronger than me, can you?" Kawako sneered. Tan Shio lightly said, "You're wrong. My ability is not limited to killing people in front. If you didn't come so fast and gave me enough time to arrange the array, I dare say that I can annihilate all 40 of you in half a minute at most." "You know array formations?" Kawako asked in amazement. Tan Shio lightly said, "I know a lot of things, and array formations is just one of them. I promise you one more thing. If you can completely submit to me, I can secretly help you to become the Yamamoto clan's patriarch and the North Star One Blade School's sect master. In fact, I can even help you develop these two forces in the island country and make them the most powerful forces in the island country. Kawako stared at Tan Shio and asked in a deep voice, "Who the hell are you?" Tan Shio lightly said, "You want to know my identity? You've promised me that you can slowly investigate me when you go back. But the premise is that you have to be alive or go back." Kawako shook her head and said, "I can't believe you." Tan Shio pointed to Kawako's body and said, "Do you think I need to lie to you?" Kawako fell into silence. She didn't reject submitting to the strong, but she always felt that it would be too hasty to make such a decision. After pondering for half a minute, she slowly asked, "Aren't you afraid that I'll break my promise today after I leave?" Tan Shio smiled and said, "I'm not afraid, because you won't dare to violate it." "Where does your confidence come from?" Kawako sneered. Tan Shio lightly said, "I guarantee you'll believe me as long as you do as I say." "Do what?" Kawako asked. Tan Shio grabbed Kawako's palm and cut it with his Mitsubishi Army knife. Then he bit his finger and dripped a drop of blood on Kawako's palm. Then he said in a deep voice, "Don't reject it. Just quietly feel your body. You'll find the benefits later." Kawako instinctively wanted to reject it, but after hearing Tan Shio's words, she felt that Tan Shio was just playing tricks on her. She slowly relaxed in order to figure out what Tan Shio wanted to do. Tan Shio's finger pressed on the wound on Kawako's palm. Under the control of his mind, the drop of blood on Kawako's palm slowly fused into her body and flowed along her blood vessels into her heart. Soul domination spell. Tan Shio's fingers quickly pinched a series of seals on Kawako's palm and then slapped the star force condensed on his fingertips into Kawako's palm. Then, it flowed along her blood vessels and flowed into her heart, fusing with his drop of blood. Boom! Kawako's vision turned black. A sweet taste came from her throat and she instantly spurted out a mouthful of blood. If it wasn't for Tan Shio dodging it, that mouthful of blood would have sprayed all over him. Tan Shio secretly gasped for breath. The requirements to cast the soul domination spell were extremely harsh. If the other party had a repulsive mentality, he wouldn't have been able to do it with his current cultivation. Fortunately, Quozi didn't reject it at all. She relaxed her mind. He could vaguely sense the condition of Kawako's body. He was sure that if he wanted Kawako to die, he could make her heart explode with just a thought. What did you do to me?" Kawako wiped the bloodstain on the corner of her mouth and looked at Tan Shio in horror. Tan Shio lightly said, "The soul domination spell is to control your life. But if you dare to disobey me in the future, your heart will explode with just a thought of mine and you'll die a tragic death." What? Kawako also felt that her life was under someone else's control. She found that she could actually see the condition of her body. She even saw a blood-colored ancient talisman on her heart, and its color was even brighter than her heart. "My body!" Kawako slowly sensed the abnormality in her body. Although she couldn't move, she could clearly feel a magical power erupting in her blood. A layer of lustrous luster slowly gushed out from her blood vessels and fused into her internal organs, muscles, tendons, and bones. Her physique was becoming stronger. Tan Shio lightly said, "You can feel it now, right? I told you that I'll give you benefits if you become my person. And the benefits are far more than that. Swear your allegiance to me and I'll teach you a cultivation technique. If you cultivate diligently, your strength will definitely increase by more than 10 times in 3 years." Kawako desperately swallowed her saliva and looked at Tan Shio, asking, "You're a taming headmaster? You cast a taming headmaster on me?" Tan Shio disdainfully said, "Taming headmaster? I told you that this kind of person only knows a little bit of tricks. If I'm given a few more years and my cultivation has a great breakthrough, even the most powerful taming headmaster on earth can't compare to my finger." Kawako's heartbeat sped up a lot. She gritted her teeth. "Restore my mobility," she said in a deep voice. Tan Shio reached out to unseal Kawako's acupoints and didn't even put up any guard against her. It was because he didn't believe that Kawako's movements were as fast as his thoughts. Kawako got up and stretched her body before kneeling in front of Tan Xiu. She placed her right fist on the left side of her heart and pinched her left hand into a special seal. Then she swore, "I, Kawako Yamamoto, swear that this man before me is my master from today onward. I'll carry out all his orders and will never betray him. If I disobey, I'm willing to be imprisoned in the 1,000-cold pond forever." I'm very sorry. Chapters 250 and 252 have been blocked many times due to the sensitive words and plots involved. Quiet Night doesn't know what the problem is, so I'm on the verge of collapsing. I'll update this chapter for the time being and wait for the problem to be completely solved before I update the next chapter. Please forgive me, brothers and sisters. Chapter 249. Tan Xiu saw that Quozi had finished her oath and calmly said, "Get up." Quozi stood up and asked, "Master, can you really make me very powerful?" Tan Xiu said, "If you work for me in the future and I'm satisfied, I'll make you powerful beyond your wildest dreams. Don't doubt my ability and don't question my words. Whether I can do it or not, you'll know in the future." Quozi nodded and suddenly said, "Master, you..." Tan Xiu interrupted her and said with a deep voice, "Don't call me master, call me boss." Quozi immediately answered. Tan Xiu said, "All right, you can say it now." Quozi asked, "Boss, can you use the same method you used to control me to control the 5 of them? I believe they've heard what we've talked about before." "I'm afraid." Tan Xiu said, "Just kill them." Quozi shook her head and said, "They're experts cultivated by the sect at great cost. It'll be a pity if you kill them. If you can control them and make them follow my orders, I'll have a few more trusted subordinates." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "They may be experts in your eyes, but they're trash in my eyes. It's not worth my effort to control them. I'll teach you the soul-controlling incantation. Just cast it for them." Quozi hurriedly asked, "Can I learn it?" Tan Xiu said, "You can't learn it now, but you have cultivated internal qi in your body. If you can transform your internal qi into true essence, you can cast the soul-controlling incantation. I'll teach you the cultivation technique now." After that, Tan Xiu casually taught Quozi a set of cultivation technique that was very common in the immortal world. 2 hours later, Quozi had completely mastered it. Even though she only transformed less than 1% of her internal qi into true essence for the first time, she clearly felt that she had become stronger. You have good aptitude and a good age. If you cultivate properly, your future achievements will be limitless, Tan Xiu said calmly. There was a hint of surprise in Quozi's eyes. Although she felt bad about suddenly becoming Tan Xiu's subordinate, the benefits she received made her feel better. "Thank you, boss." Tan Xiu waved his hand and imparted the soul-controlling incantation to her before saying, "What is your purpose for coming to Huaxia with such a big fuss? Just to snatch the technological data from Yuan Zhengxian?" Yuan Zhengshuan's laboratory has recently developed a biochemical bacterium. It will have a very powerful effect if it's used in weapons. Quozi nodded. A few years ago, a professor in his laboratory was bribed by an American arms dealer to spread the news. Later on, many forces from all over the world also received this information. That's why we came to China and attempted to obtain the core information of the biochemical bacteria from Yuan Zhengxian. Tan Xiu suddenly understood and said, "All right, I understand. Go and subdue those ninjas, then bring them out of China." As for snatching the biochemical bacteria and developing it into weapons, don't participate in it anymore. Also, if you encounter any trouble after you go back, you can contact me immediately. I'll send someone to help you if I can. Understood? Quozi nodded. Under Tan Xiu's signal, the 5 ninjas were taken to the factory by Quozi. Tan Xiu stood outside the factory and saw Yuan Zhengxian rushing over. "Tan Xiu, I understand the situation here. Thank you. Thank you. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid little Ling and I would have died. All my men around me would have died as well. Even the core confidential data of my company would have been obtained by them." Yuan Zhengxian thanked him with a grateful face. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "It's all right. It's what I should do. In fact, I'm also at fault if you really want to talk about it. I promise to help you deliver the core data, but I forgot about it because I had too many things to do. I haven't fulfilled my promise up until now. Yuan Jingxian immediately smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. I'm relieved as long as the core data can be kept. I've also made up my mind after this incident. I can't make enough money. I'll wait until the experiment is completely over and the research can be used in weapons, then I'll directly sell it to the military. Later on, I'll switch to other businesses." Tan Xiao squinted his eyes and asked, "Uncle Yuan, may I ask how much the biochemical bacteria you developed in your lab can be sold for?" Yuan Jingxian stared blankly for a moment before his expression changed and he asked, "How do you know it's biochemical bacteria?" Tan Xiao pointed to the factory and said, "That woman is now my subordinate." Yuan Jingxian suddenly understood. A forced smile hung on his face as he said, "It can't be sold for much money actually. It should be $1 billion US. Tan Xiao was a bit moved as he nodded and said, "It's indeed worth a lot. All right, I've done what I should do. I'll leave the aftermath to you." Yuan Jingxian nodded and said, "My men have secretly sent their bodies to the crematorium. I have some connections there. I'll also send someone to clean this place. In short, I'll keep this huge favor in mind. If you need anything in the future, don't hesitate to ask me." Tan Xiao slowly nodded. Suddenly, his expression slightly changed as he recalled something. He immediately forced a smile and said, "Uncle Yuan, there's something I need your help with." Yuan Jingxian was confused and asked, "What is it?" "Do you know anyone in the traffic bureau, Uncle Yuan?" asked Tan Xiao. Yuan Jingxian said, "Yes. The head of the traffic bureau is my buddy, and there's also someone in the traffic police brigade." "I was in my hometown in Qinghe County when I received your call," said Tan Xiao helplessly. "I just got my driver's license and went on the highway since I wanted to get there earlier. The most important thing is that I'm driving very fast. Even if it's not 200 kilometers per hour, it's not that far off. To avoid trouble, I left my Land Rover in a remote place in the city." Yuan Jingxian felt warm inside after hearing it. He laughed loudly and said, "It's just a trivial matter, Tan Xiao. Leave it to me. I promise it won't affect your driving later. Also, where did you park your car? Tell me the address. I'll send someone to get the car and send it to you tomorrow." After thanking him, Tan Xiao then looked at the dazed Yuan Chuling next to Yuan Jingxian. He gently punched his chest and said with a smile, "What's wrong? Are you scared by today's scene? You didn't expect that I would kill the enemy with my own hands, did you?" Yuan Chuling came back to his senses. The complicated expression in his eyes slowly disappeared and was replaced with deep worship. He looked at Tan Xiao and shouted, "Big bro, teach me martial arts. I want to be as powerful as you." Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, "If you can bear the hardships, I can let others teach you. But you're going to study at the university, so you should enjoy your college life." Yuan Chuling shook his head and said, "Even if I go to the university, I can still practice martial arts. Let's happily decide that I'll practice martial arts with you from now on." Tan Xiao faintly smiled and said, "No problem. Before you practice martial arts with me, you'll get up at 5:30 a.m. every day. Do horse stance for an hour and run 10 kilometers. Then, run 10 kilometers every night. If you can persist until September 1st, I'll teach you martial arts." "Really?" Yuan Chuling's fighting spirit was high. Tan Xiao looked at his plump belly and couldn't help laughing, "Really?" Soon after, Tan Xiao turned to look at Yuan Jingxian and said, "Uncle Yuan, I'll leave the aftermath to you. We'll be leaving first. If you need me later, just contact me." "All right." Yuan Jingxian nodded. Tan Xiao didn't see Kawako again and quickly left the abandoned factory with Zhong Tiekue and Wolf Head, a total of 32 people. Ever since Wolf Head and the other 12 retired Special Forces soldiers promised to follow him, he had been letting them fend for themselves. But now, they had completed Tan Xiao's test, so Tan Xiao was also thinking about how to arrange them. Suddenly, his expression moved as a plan appeared in his mind. "Wolfhead, you've done a great job this time. Consider it as a proof of allegiance to me. I'm going to let you stay in Star City for a few days. After I've dealt with the matters here, I'll take you to the private island I bought in the Pacific Ocean. You'll stay there later," said Tan Xiao slowly. The 12 wolf-head men exchanged glances and nodded. Tan Xiao then looked at Zhong Tiekue and smilingly said, "You've done a great job tonight. You've shown me your abilities. This matter is over, so you can go back now." Understood. 4 o'clock in the evening. Tan Xiao returned to Southgate Town and rushed back to Star City overnight. He didn't tell his mother about this matter, so he decided not to return to Qinghe County for the time being. The matters there were almost solved, so he had to deal with the matters in Star City first and then rush to Jingmen Island. From there, he would go to the private island he bought. On the second floor of the villa, Tan Xiao gently pushed the door of Gu Yin's room and nodded with satisfaction after seeing her sleeping soundly inside. After coming to his room, Tan Xiao pushed the door and entered, turning on the light. Ugh! Tan Xiao's expression froze and a dull look appeared in his eyes. On his bed, a woman with an excellent figure was lying on the bed, wearing only her underwear. The woman's sleeping posture was very beautiful, and the outline of her delicate body was full of temptation. Despite having a strong self-control, Tan Xiao couldn't help but let his imagination run wild at this moment. There are so many guest rooms downstairs, yet Kang Xia is sleeping in her own room. This woman, isn't she afraid that I'll suddenly come back and execute her on the spot? Tan Xiao shook his head. Just as he was about to turn off the light and go to the guest room to rest, Kang Xia on the bed suddenly moved and opened her eyes. Who's there? Kang Xia's vigilance was good. She suddenly pulled the blanket to cover her body and then jumped up from the bed. Chapter 250. Su Lingyun said, "Xiao, Mom understands what you're thinking. I agree, but I believe that Xiangfei's nature is absolutely not bad. Even your uncle, even Su Shangwen, he was also harmed by money and lost his nature. He used to be very good, kind, and took care of his family. He really helped us a lot to live in Star City all these years. So, Xiao, you must think of a way to save him after he's done reflecting on his actions in prison." Tan Xiao complied. Qinghe County, Su Family Village. Su Xiangfei was quietly leaning on the courtyard wall, smoking a cigarette. He clearly heard everything that Su Lingyun and Tan Xiao said on the phone. He hated, but he didn't know who to hate. In the short span of a month or two, he had experienced too much. Even though he thought that he had a strong endurance, he still hid in his sister's classmate's house for many days. He drank and smoked every day, living a life worse than death. He wanted to hate Tang Xiao because he knew that it was Tang Xiao who had caused his family to end up like this. But after thinking about it over and over again, he suddenly realized that it was indeed his family who relied on their wealth and power to bully his aunt and cousin miserably. Thinking back, if the police hadn't found the evidence, the one in prison now would not be his parents, but Tan Xiao. At this moment, Su Xiangfei listened to his aunt's words. 2 lines of tears slowly flowed down. In the past, he always thought that his aunt was very weak and easy to bully. Watching his parents bully her, he also had the attitude of watching a play. But now, listening to his aunt's words, his heart was filled with mixed feelings. He threw the cigarette butt to the ground and fiercely stamped it with his toes. Then, he turned around and entered the courtyard. He went straight to the front of Su Lingyun and knelt on the ground. "Auntie, I'm sorry." Su Lingyun was shocked by Su Xiangfei's actions. She looked at Su Xiangfei in disbelief. She opened her mouth but didn't know what to say. She had not hung up the phone, and her son, who was on the other end of the line, was silent. After a while, only then did Su Lingyun wake up from her daze. She hurriedly helped Su Xiangfei up inside. "Xiangfei, no matter how much our families quarrel, we're still family. Xiao's original intention was to prevent me from being bullied. You're older than Xiao, so you should be more sensible than him. Don't blame him." Su Xiangfei said bitterly, "Auntie, I don't blame him. Just like what you just said, my dad was blinded by wealth, and I also became very arrogant. Back then, I framed Tan Xiao for stealing money. If I hadn't been discovered, I'm afraid he would be the one in jail now, not my parents. So, I don't hate him." A gratified expression appeared on Su Lingyun's face. She gently patted his shoulder and said, "Xiangfei, it's good that you don't hate him. Don't worry." Xiao is a man who attaches great importance to his promises. He has said in front of your grandma that he will rescue your dad from jail in 2 years. Su Xiangfei nodded heavily and said, Auntie, the reason why I can wake up is because of my dad. He committed suicide before he was taken away and was hospitalized. When I was in the hospital, I heard him calling out your name while he was unconscious, apologizing to you. At that time, I knew that my dad regretted it. Sparkling tears overflowed from Su Lingyun's eyes. She only had one big brother. If he could wake up and see her as a family member and be a good person, she was willing to pay a great price for it. Xiangfei, stay at home and accompany your grandma. Wait for a few days, we'll go back to Star City together to see your dad. All right. Su Xiangfei nodded heavily. However, a trace of a smile appeared on his face as it quickly dissipated. After hesitating for a moment, he whispered, Auntie, if my sister can't figure it out and hates you and Tan Xiao, please don't blame her. Su Lingyun shook her head and sighed, I can understand if she hates me and Tan Xiao. Don't worry. I'm her aunt, after all. I'll have a good chat with her when I see her. Su Xiangfei said. She left. She went to Shanghai. Su Lingyun was confused and asked, What is she going to do in Shanghai? Su Xiangfei said, She said that she's going to find a classmate and work in Shanghai. Su Lingyun was silent for a moment before she slowly said, Your cousin is going to study in Shanghai. I'll tell him to find your sister after he goes there. Su Xiangfei was silent for a moment before he slowly nodded and said, Thank you, Auntie. Tell my cousin that it was indeed my fault in the past. At this time, Tan Xiao's voice came from the phone. Mom, give the phone to Su Xiangfei. Upon hearing it, Su Lingyun quickly handed the phone to Su Xiangfei and said, Your cousin wants to talk to you. Su Xiangfei's expression was a bit complicated. After receiving the phone, he didn't speak. Tan Xiao's voice came from the phone. Su Xiangfei, I don't care if you're really remorseful or not. Remember this. If you dare to do anything to hurt my mom, I'll make you taste the most miserable taste in the world. Also, if you can turn over a new leaf and treat your family well, I can guarantee that you'll have a meteoric rise in the future. Su Xiangfei said bitterly, It's fine if I can have a meteoric rise in the future. I'm afraid that I'll be like my dad and lose myself after having a meteoric rise. Cousin Tan Xiao, let's write off the previous matter. Auntie treats me well and I won't let her down. Also, I'll take some time to come back to see her and take care of her. Remember your words, said Tan Xiao. After that, Tan Xiao directly hung up the phone. He wasn't a suspicious person, but he still couldn't fully trust Su Xiangfei. Therefore, after thinking for a moment, he dialed the number Kawako Kitamiya had given him. Kawako Kitamiya speaking, May I ask who's calling? It's me. Are you, boss? Kawako Kitamiya immediately became more respectful and asked, What's your order, boss? Have you returned to Japan? Asked Tan Xiao. Not yet. Kawako shook her head. Their injuries are very serious, and we're still somewhere in Star City. We'll go back in 2 days. Does the North Star One Blade School have any female ninjas? Asked Tan Xiao. I want one that's loyal to you. Kawako confidently said, My 4 attendants are undergoing brutal training in the North Star One Blade School. Therefore, I didn't bring them out this time. Also, I'll use the soul controlling spell to control them after I go back, so that they'll be more loyal in the future. Do they speak Chinese? Asked Tan Xiao. They're proficient in Japanese, Chinese, English, French, and German, said Kawako respectfully. In that case, use the soul controlling spell to control them and send 2 of them to Star City, said Tan Xiao. They'll protect my mother's safety in secret. I'll send you my mother's information later. Understood. Kawako Kitamiya respectfully replied. Tan Xiao hung up the phone and edited his mother's information, and then sent it to Kawako Kitamiya. Afterward, he put on his clothes, washed up, and went to the hall on the 1st floor. A faint aroma of food came from the dining room. You're awake? It's time for lunch. Kong Xia came out of the kitchen with 2 dishes. Upon seeing Tan Xiao, a sweet smile immediately appeared on her face. Tan Xiao looked at Kong Xia and found that her walking posture was a bit awkward. In an instant he understood the reason. However, he couldn't help but sigh at the creator's miraculous power. Kang Xia was so tired before that she didn't even have the strength to move her fingers. But now, she was 100 times more spirited. Even her ruddy complexion seemed to be more beautiful and charming than before. Yuan Chuling is right. In this world, there are only cows that die from exhaustion, but there's no such thing as a field that goes bad from plowing. Tan Xiu secretly sighed inwardly as he walked toward the dining room with a smile. Master. Gu Yin, who was sitting at the dining table, immediately looked happy upon seeing Tan Xiu's arrival. Tan Xiu touched her small head and said with a smile, "Let's eat. I'll take you to Jingmen Island in a few days." Gu Yin didn't care about where to go. What she cared about was to be with Tan Xiu. Jingmen Island? Kang Xia, who had just put 2 dishes on the table, suddenly looked up upon hearing Tan Xiu's words. She was particularly concerned about Tan Xiu since the two of them had been intimate. She might not care about it if Tan Xiu wanted to go to other places, but going to Jingmen Island made her a bit worried. Because Ouyang Lulu was a native of Jingmen Island, and she was now there. Kang Xia tried to pretend to be casual and asked, "Boss, do you want to take Yinin to Jingmen Island? Play? Or something else?" Tan Xiu wasn't aware of Kang Xia's thoughts, so he said, "I'll take her to see her senior sister. I'll take her abroad while I'm at it. I bought an island in the Pacific Ocean, but I haven't visited it yet. So I'm going there to officially receive it before the semester starts. That's right, I don't have a passport. Can you help me and Yinin apply for passports?" Kang Xia secretly heaved a sigh of relief after hearing it. However, she was secretly surprised to hear that Tang Xiu also had an apprentice who turned out to be a woman. She said, "Boss, you need to go there personally to apply for passports. Also, it will take a long time. But if you look for Long Zhengyu, he should be able to handle it." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "Then I'll ask him for help. Come, sit down and eat. Nourish your body." Nourish her body? Kang Xia suddenly recalled the matter between them. A trace of shyness immediately appeared on her face as she lowered her head and sat at the table. Gu Yin raised her small face and asked, "Master, is senior sister's temper good? Will she like Yinin?" "Your senior sister was injured and has been in a coma," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "But she has a good temper. You look like her when she was young, so I think she will like you." "Yeah." Gu Yin nodded obediently. "Boss, how many apprentices do you have, exactly?" Kang Xia asked with a confused expression. "At present, I have 4. Tan Xiu said with a smile. "I know Chen Zhizhong and Gu Yin. There's also another one who works in the hospital." "Who's the other one? Why haven't I heard you mention it before?" "There are some things that are inconvenient to say," Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. "You'll know later." Chapter 251. After lunch. After that, Kang Xia hurriedly left Southgate Town. The magnificent Tang Corporation was in its initial stage, and there were many things that she needed to handle personally. Even when Tan Xiu asked her to rest for a day, she refused. Tan Xiu left the villa and found that his Land Rover SUV had been sent over and was parked on the side of the road outside. After returning to the villa and taking the car key, Tan Xiu then drove to the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. The villagers came to Star City to see a doctor. Although he had called to arrange it, he still had to visit them. After all, those people had watched him grow up. Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Tan Xiu parked the car in the parking lot and walked to the inpatient department. On the way, he called Dai Xinyue and asked for the ward number of the 5 injured villagers. Director's office. Li Hongji was reading some documents. Recently, he had been in pain and happiness. The pain was that the hospital was too small and there were too few doctors. There were too few rooms in the inpatient department, but there were too many patients. He was happy because the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital was now famous, and even those famous big hospitals in the country were contacting him. If only Tan Xiu could stay in Star City Chinese Medical Hospital forever. So, if he's willing to stay, I'm willing to give him the position of dean. After Li Hongji finished reading the documents, he shook his head with a bitter smile and sighed. Ring ring. his phone rang, causing him to raise his brows. He grabbed the phone and his eyes lit up when he saw the caller ID. After picking up the call, he said in an extremely amiable tone, "Xinhua, why did you call me? Did your master come to our Star City Chinese Medical Hospital?" Master went to the inpatient department to visit his fellow villagers. Dai Xinhua's voice came from the phone. Li Hongji's face lit up and he immediately said, "I asked you to report the news that he came to the hospital. Did you tell him?" "I did," Dai Xinhua said. The smile on Li Hongji's face widened. Since Dai Xinhua didn't tell him not to go to Tanxiu, it meant that Tanxiu wouldn't mind if he went there. Thinking of this, he immediately said something to Dai Xinhua, hung up the phone, and rushed out of the dean's office. In the ward of the inpatient department, Su Jianda leaned on the sickbed and ate the apple his daughter had peeled. At the same time, he proudly said to the patient who had just been admitted, "I know who the divine doctor you're talking about is. I'm not afraid to tell you that not only do I know who he is, I even know where his house is." The patient in the next bed was an old man with a head full of white hair. His son and daughter were beside the bed. Hearing Su Jianda's words, the old man's daughter quickly asked, "Do you know his family? Is this for real?" It was said that the divine doctor came and went without a trace, and the time he came to Star City Chinese Medical Hospital to give medical services was not fixed. My dad asked the director of the hospital, but even he didn't know when divine Dr. Tang would come to see patients again. Su Jianda said with a smile, "I can see that you know the dean, which means you're not ordinary people. Do you know why we're in this ward? It was because Tan Xiu had spoken to the leaders of the hospital. Furthermore, I watched him grow up. That child is sensible and smart. I'm not surprised that he could become a divine doctor. Uncle Jianda, I'll be embarrassed if you praise me like this." A voice came from outside the ward, and immediately, Tan Xiu's figure appeared at the door. Upon seeing Tan Xiu, Su Jianda and the other villagers of the Su family village immediately looked pleasantly surprised. Su Jianda struggled to get up, but was stopped by Tan Xiu. "Uncle Jianda, you're injured, so don't get up. We're family, so you don't need to be polite with me. How are you? How's your injury?" Tan Xiu asked with a smile. Su Jianda said excitedly, "I'm recovering very well. The doctors said that I only need to stay here for 10 days to half a month before I can be discharged." "Tan Xiu, it's really you. Didn't you go back to Qinghe County? How come you're back in Star City?" Tan Xiu said with a smile, "The matter at home has been dealt with, and the murderer who injured you has bowed his head and admitted his mistake, as well as paid the compensation. Therefore, that matter was considered to be over. I have something to do, so I came back to Star City." Shortly after, Tan Xiu then greeted the other villagers in the room. Although he was now rich and powerful, and was also known as a divine doctor in this hospital, he didn't become arrogant, and his attitude was as modest as ever. On the next bed, the white-haired old man, who was half leaning on the bed, as well as his children, were curiously looking at Tan Xiu. Although they heard that divine Dr. Tang was very young, they didn't expect him to be this young. Seeing that Tan Xiu had finished exchanging greetings with the villagers of the Su family village, the old man said with a smile, "You're really a young hero. I heard that divine Dr. Tang is very young, but the degree of his youth is beyond my expectation. Divine Dr. Tang, it's better to come at the right time than to come early. How about you treat me now?" Tan Xiu looked at the old man with a bit of vigilance in his eyes. Just as he came to the inpatient department, he found a problem. There were at least 20 men in civilian clothes everywhere in the inpatient department, monitoring the stairs and elevators. In the corridor of the ward, there were also several callous men, who should be martial arts experts, who were intentionally or unintentionally observing the ward. Therefore, he had already guessed that this old man's identity was definitely not simple. Furthermore, he felt that this old man was a bit familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen him. After a moment of silence, he asked, "What's your illness?" The old man forced a smile and said, "It's asthma for many years. It's been getting more and more serious recently, so my children took me here from the imperial capital when I heard that a divine doctor appeared in Star City Chinese Medical Hospital." "What's your name?" Tan Xiu nodded and asked. I'm surnamed Tang. We were a family 500 years ago. The old man said with a smile. Surname Tang? The imperial capital? Tan Xiu frowned. Although Su Lingyun didn't tell him too much about his father, she did reveal a bit that his father was from the imperial capital and also surnamed Tang. However, he secretly shook his head because he didn't believe that there would be such a coincidence in the world. Furthermore, his father, who had no feelings at all, should have nothing to do with them. This family's background was not simple. If he had a relationship with this family, how could he possibly fall in love with his ordinary mother who came from the countryside? Tan Xiu looked at the smile on the old man's face and lightly said, "To tell you the truth, I don't have a good impression of this surnamed Tang. If I could, I really hope that my surname is Su. Alright, asthma is easy to treat. It's just a problem with your lungs. Wait for your family to bring you to the consultation room. I'll treat you." Knock knock. The door was knocked. Li Hongji, along with two hospital leaders, strode into the ward. When he saw Tan Xiu, he immediately said excitedly, "Tan Xiu, you finally came. You know, I'm really excited and sad now. If you didn't come, I'm afraid I would have gone to your house to find you." "Is there something you need from me?" Tan Xiu asked doubtfully. Li Hongji forced a smile and said, "There's something. Of course there's something. Because of you, our Star City Chinese Medical Hospital is now absolutely famous in the country. Many of the patients with difficult and complicated diseases you've cured have been sent to other places in the country. Many outstanding doctors from large hospitals couldn't cure them. Therefore, you're now the most dazzling star in the medical field. Didn't you notice it when you came up? The inpatient department's ward has been full of patients from all over the country. Even the corridors on each floor are temporarily filled with beds. We just bought 50 beds yesterday afternoon, but it's far from enough. Many people are sleeping on the floor in the corridor." Tan Xiu stared blankly and incredulously said, "The fame of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital has really become so big?" Li Hongji forced a smile and said, "It's true." Tan Xiu touched the bridge of his nose and lightly said, "It seems that I have to reduce the number of times I come to the Chinese medical hospital to give medical services. A tall tree attracts the wind. I don't like to be famous." Tan Xiu turned his head and looked at the old man, saying, "So be it. Don't let your children send you to the consultation room. I'll take a look at you here. When you're well, hurry up and leave." Li Hongji looked at the old man as a strange light flashed in his eyes. He quickly said, "Senior Chief, since Tan Xiu is willing to treat you, then your asthma can finally be cured." He believed in Tan Xiu because he knew one thing. It was Sun Wenjing's mother, the old lady suffering from the middle stage of liver cancer, who was cured by Tan Xiu. A divine doctor who could even cure a middle-stage liver cancer patient. If he couldn't even cure asthma, then it would simply be a joke. Therefore, he had full confidence in Tan Xiu. "Senior Chief?" Tan Xiu frowned. Suddenly, a picture flashed in his mind. He immediately understood why he felt that this old man was somewhat familiar. He was a high-ranking and powerful leader of the country, one who was at least ranked in the top 10 in the country. He had seen him on TV when he watched the news broadcast. The old man frowned and said in a low voice, "President Li, didn't I tell you not to call me that? Just call me Old Tang." Yes. Li Hongji quickly replied with an obsequious smile. The old man looked at Tan Xiu and said with a smile, "Then I'll have to trouble you, Divine Dr. Tang. If there's anything you need to prepare in advance, just tell President Li." Tan Xiu lightly nodded and said, "Prepare a basin of warm water and a clean towel. Also, give me some medical alcohol and alcohol cotton." A hospital leader behind Li Hongji immediately said, "I'll prepare it at once." Tan Xiu waved his hand at Li Hongji and said, "I'll go abroad in a few days. If I finish my business in advance and there's still some time before the start of the semester, I'll come to the hospital to see patients for a few days. If I come back late, I won't come to see patients. I'll come again during the holidays. There are doctors in the hospital who are coming from all over the country, so I'll leave it to them." Li Hongji's face immediately turned bitter after hearing it. The hospital had received so many patients from outside. If Tan Xiu were to quit, he was afraid that he, the president, wouldn't be able to handle it. After all, Many of the patients who came because of the reputation had extraordinary backgrounds. Although they couldn't be compared with the one in front of him, some of them were people he couldn't afford to offend. Chapter 252. Li Hongji hesitated for a moment and cautiously asked, Tan Xiu, aren't you going to go abroad for a few days? Could you spare me 2 days before you leave? After all, those patients are very pitiful. They will be very disappointed if they can't see you after traveling thousands of miles. Don't worry, I'll immediately announce to the public that you have to leave for an important matter and won't be coming back to our Star City Chinese Medical Hospital for a short time. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he nodded and said, All right. I have something to do tomorrow. After I'm done, I'll come here to see patients for 2 days. Li Hongji was pleasantly surprised. That's great. I'll immediately notify everyone. Knock, knock. The ward's door was knocked. After everyone in the room looked outside the door, Tang Xiu's expression turned blank as a surprised expression appeared on his face. It was because this person was the manor master of Seaside Strait Manor in Jingmen Island, Tang Dong. The old man on the sickbed had a gloomy expression as he asked in a deep voice, Why are you here? Upon seeing Tan Xiu, Tang Dong also stared blankly for a moment before he nodded to Tan Xiu. He looked at the old man and forced a smile. First, uncle, father heard that you're coming to Star City for treatment, so he asked me to come and see. Furthermore, I have an acquaintance in Star City. I brought him a batch of goods and am ready to trade. The old man coldly snorted, Your father still cares about my life and death. That's really rare. All right, since you're here and you've seen it, go and do your business. Tang Dong forced a smile and said, First, uncle, even if I want to do my business, I still have to find my acquaintance. I can't do my business if I leave here. The old man angrily shouted, What does it have to do with doing business here? You're not a child anymore. How can you be so frivolous? Don't tell me the person you want to cooperate with is here? Tang Dong forced a smile and said, First, uncle, the person I want to cooperate with is here. The old man stared blankly for a moment before he flew into a rage. At this moment, a trace of a smile was revealed on Tan Xiu's face as he said, Tang Dong, how many goods did you bring this time? Tang Dong stretched out his hand and said with a smile, 5. Where is it? Tan Xiu nodded. Tang Dong said, I've sent someone to send it to the place where the last transaction took place. I wanted to call you after visiting my uncle. I didn't expect to meet you here. What? You also have relatives and friends in the hospital? Tan Xiu pointed to the other 2 villagers in the hospital beds and said, Yes, they are injured, so I came to have a look. I didn't expect this old man to be your uncle. Director Li, even if I didn't say anything, I'm afraid that your hospital wouldn't dare to collect his hospitalization fees and treatment fees, right? Li Hongji smiled and said, Of course, of course. The old man, who was half sitting on the bed, looked at Tang Dong and Tan Xiu in surprise. He didn't expect that his nephew actually knew Tan Xiu and even had business dealings with Tan Xiu. He curiously asked, Tang Dong, what kind of business are you working with Divine Dr. Tang? Divine Dr. Tang? Tang Dong looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression and honestly said, Uncle, you know about our family's manor. Tan Xiu bought the bones of those fierce beasts and other corpses at a high price. I've sold him 4 fierce beasts' bones before. This time I brought 5 more. The old man was surprised. Divine Dr. Tang, what exactly do you do? Aside from being a doctor in this hospital, you seem to be a student. How come you do business? Tan Xiu lightly said, It's just a small business to earn some money to support my family. You have such a prominent identity, yet you don't know the sufferings of ordinary people like us. The old man was speechless. His surname was Tang, Tanguishing. Beside the bed were his children, Tang Yunpeng and Tang Xia. At this moment, Tang Yunpeng frowned and said, Divine Dr. Tang, my father may be in a high position, but he still understands the sufferings of the common people. If you don't know my father, I hope you won't speak irresponsibly. Tan Xiu coldly glanced at him and didn't say anything. Tang Guisheng scolded in a low voice, Yunpeng, don't talk nonsense. Although he scolded verbally, he was secretly surprised inside. It was because he knew that Tan Xiao had guessed his identity, yet he didn't have the slightest fear toward him. It was as if he didn't take his identity seriously at all. One must know that if an ordinary person knew his identity, they would be very shocked and would be respectful before him. For example, the president of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, Li Hongji. Tang Yunpeng let out a bitter smile after being scolded. He really wanted to educate Tan Xiao, but Tan Xiao was, after all, a divine doctor, and his father's illness still needed his treatment. Therefore, he could only suppress the thought of educating Tan Xiao at the bottom of his heart. Tang Guosheng looked at Tan Xiao and said with a smile, "Divine Dr. Tang, I've let you see a joke. My good-for-nothing children like to talk nonsense, please don't mind them. It's just that I didn't expect you to have such a great ability at such a young age." "It's nothing," Tan Xiao said lightly. Upon seeing Tan Xiao's dull expression, Tang Dong quickly said, "Tan Xiao, I didn't know that you're a divine doctor. If I had known earlier, I would have asked you to treat my uncle." Tan Xiao said, "It's not too late to treat him now. Although his aura is weak, it's not a problem for him to live for 8 to 10 years. After I've cured his asthma, he can live for at least 10 years. "That's great." Tang Dong was pleasantly surprised. Suddenly, Tang Dong's complexion changed. His eyes seemed to recall something as he quickly said, "Tan Xiao, since you're called a divine doctor, and my uncle came to Star City from thousands of miles away to find you for treatment. Then, can you treat my third brother? If you can cure him, I'll give you all the fierce beast skeletons in my manor for free. I won't ask for a penny." Tang Guosheng, who was lying on the sickbed, and Tang Yunpeng and Tang Xia next to the sickbed, were shocked. Their eyes instantly stared at Tan Xiao. All of them for free? Tan Xiao looked at Tang Dong with astonishment. One must know that the price of a fierce beast skeleton was 5 million yuan. Moreover, he still had a long way to go. He actually wanted to give all the skeletons to him? Isn't this price a little too great? What kind of illness does he have? Tang Dong said with a sinking tone. His brain was severely damaged and he has been in a coma for 19 years. The most famous medical expert in the country has determined that he's in a vegetative state. Tan Xiao nodded and said, "I'll try it if I have the chance. I've been very busy recently and have no time." Tang Guosheng hurriedly asked, "Divine Dr. Tang, you can treat a vegetative state?" Tan Xiao said lightly, "Whether I can treat him or not, I'll tell you after I've treated him. He has been in a coma for 19 years and is still alive. It seems that you have put in a lot of effort." A pained expression flashed in Tang Guosheng's eyes. His wrinkled palms were tightly clenched. After a few seconds of silence, he bitterly said, "My youngest son was only 25 years old when he became a vegetative state. Speaking of which, it's quite a coincidence that he was injured in Star City." "Star City?" Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment before his heart suddenly tightened. After a moment of silence, Tan Xiao asked in a deep voice, "What's your youngest son's name?" "Tang Yunda." Tang Guosheng replied with a deep tone. "What did you say?" Tan Xiao's complexion greatly changed as disbelief burst out from his eyes. Tang Yunda? This familiar and unfamiliar name had been firmly engraved in his mind for 20 years. He had hated the owner of this name countless times in the past 20 years. Tang Guosheng looked at Tan Xiao with an astonished expression and said, "Divine Dr. Tang, why are you—" Tan Xiao stared at Tang Guosheng with a cold glint in his eyes as he asked word by word, "Tang Guosheng? Living in seclusion in Star City 19 years ago? 25 years old? Someone from the imperial capital? Used to be a soldier? How did you know?" Tang Guosheng was surprised. Tan Xiao's complexion turned more unsightly. Suddenly, he turned to look at Li Hongji and shouted, "Scram! Get the hell out of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Get the hell out of Star City. I won't treat him even if he dies." What? Li Hongji was stunned. He was dumbfounded as he looked at the furious Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao's eyes were like that of a vicious wolf. His cold eyes swept over Tang Guosheng, Tang Yunpeng, Tang Xia, and Tang Dong. He then turned around and strode outside the room. He ran all the way to the stairs before he stopped. His back leaned against the wall as he gasped for breath. "Tang Yunda, He used to hate the owner of this name. He thought that he had grown up and no longer hated him. He even thought that he no longer had any connection with him. But when he suddenly heard his name and saw his father and siblings, the hatred that had been buried in his heart for many years erupted once again. He hated not for himself, but for his mother, who had raised him all alone. With trembling hands, Tan Xiu took out a cigarette from his pocket. After lighting it up, he took 2 deep puffs and slowly calmed down the anger in his heart. In the ward, the Tang family members were startled by Tan Xiu's reaction. They didn't understand why Tan Xiu suddenly showed such a strong hatred toward them. Tan Xiu's eyes made them think that he saw an unforgettable enemy. What's going on? Tang Guisheng's lips squirmed a few times as he stared at the door in a daze. Suddenly, he seemed to realize something. His eyes immediately widened as disbelief burst out from his eyes. He then shouted, "Quickly catch up with him. Find him and bring him back." Tang Yunpeng sobered up from his daze and asked with a confused expression, "Dad, what's going on?" Tang Guisheng didn't seem to hear his son's question. In his mind, he repeatedly recalled the phone call his youngest son made before he became a vegetable. "Dad, you're going to be a grandfather. Little Yun is pregnant. It's been more than 3 months. Could it be?" Tang Guisheng's old body slightly trembled. He knew that he had a grandson or granddaughter that he had never seen before. 19 years ago, he had sent a large number of people to look for his youngest son's daughter-in-law. He didn't even let him see her before they got married. But he only knew that his youngest son's daughter-in-law was called Little Yun. Therefore, the result of the investigation was naturally not found. He fantasized that his youngest son would wake up one day and learn about his youngest son's daughter-in-law and grandson or granddaughter from his mouth. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. Today's first chapter is presented to you. I'm weekly asking for a guaranteed monthly support. Chapter 253. Tang Yunpeng's eyes were full of curiosity as he looked at his father's constantly changing expression. Even Tang Xia and Tang Dong were confused as they didn't understand what was going on. "What are you waiting for?" Tang Guisheng sobered up from his contemplation and immediately shouted when he saw his children still in the ward. Tang Yunpeng hesitated for a moment before he turned around and walked out of the ward. He waved to a man who seemed to be passing by in the corridor outside, but was actually a plain-clothed guard, and asked, "A young man just went out of the ward. Where did he go?" The guard pointed to the stairs. "There." Tang Yunpeng nodded and strode toward the stairs. When he came to the stairs, he saw Tan Xiu leaning on the wall, smoking a cigarette with a gloomy expression. "Divine Dr. Tang, I want to know the reason." Tan Xiu indifferently looked at Tang Yunpeng and said, "You don't have the qualifications. Even your family's patriarch doesn't have the qualifications. If I remember correctly, Tang Yunda was driven away by his family back then. Then he came to Star City to live alone. Am I right?" Tang Yunpeng frowned and asked, "How do you know so much about my brother's situation?" "I don't know much either." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "But it's enough for me to hate your Tang family. So, don't provoke me. Even if your Tang family is a big family, I can still destroy it if I want to." Tang Yunpeng's brows creased deeper and asked, "You seem to have a deep hostility toward us. Could it be that my Tang family has enmity with you?" "Enmity?" Tan Xiu sneered. "I really want to have enmity with you. Forget it, I've said what I should say. I can't cure your father's illness. You're on your own now." Having said that, Tan Xiu was about to go downstairs. Wait. A loud voice came not from Tang Yunpeng's mouth, but from Tang Guisheng, who was being supported by someone. Tan Xiu stopped and coldly looked at Tang Guisheng. Tang Guisheng came in front of Tan Xiu and carefully looked at Tan Xiu's appearance. After a long while, he murmured, "Similar, at least 60% similar. 20 years ago, I sent people to turn the entire Star City upside down, but they still couldn't find my youngest daughter-in-law, the woman named Xiaoyan. Yunda was suddenly injured and became a vegetable. For the past 20 years, I've been waiting for him to wake up and tell me that woman's full name and where she lived when she was already pregnant." "What?" Tang Yunpeng and Tang Xia exclaimed in shock. Even Tang Dong's eyes were wide open, his eyes bursting with disbelief. They all knew about this. Back then, they had searched for a very long time. Could it be? The three of them looked at Tan Xiao in unison. Tan Xiao fell silent. He didn't know the truth of that year. If he suddenly disappeared because he was seriously injured and became a vegetable and was brought back to the capital, should she still hate him? Finally, Tan Xiao slowly raised his head and looked at the excited Tang Guosheng. Then he lightly said, "That's your family's business. It has nothing to do with me. I can help you treat your illness. But I hope that after I've cured you, you'll never appear in Star City again." Tang Guosheng stepped forward and seriously said, "If you were me," Tan Xiao waved his hand to interrupt him and indifferently said, "There's no if. It's just that I heard the name I hate, so my reaction was a bit extreme. Also, I'm 22 years old now, so I should have nothing to do with you. So, I'll go back to the ward and treat you." 22 years old? Tang Guosheng stared blankly as his brows deeply wrinkled. According to Tan Xiao's age, it was impossible for him to be his grandson. However, his previous appearance was too abnormal. Even if he was not his grandson, it was likely that he was related to his youngest daughter-in-law. "Tan Xiao, you know my youngest son's situation. His behavior is also abnormal. So I'm sure you know something. Tell me, my Tang family will definitely reward you." While walking toward the ward, Tan Xiao indifferently said, "I don't care about your Tang family's reward. What you should be thinking about now is not the messy things, but your asthma. If you want me to treat you, then don't talk nonsense. If you don't want me to treat you, then don't occupy the latrine pit and go back to the imperial capital." Tang Guosheng's expression was complicated. As a shrewd old man, he was more and more sure that Tan Xiao must know a lot about his youngest son and daughter-in-law. However, Tan Xiao's obviously hostile attitude made him feel that he couldn't be too hasty. Tang Dong and Tang Xia's eyes flickered with a strange light, but they didn't utter a word. Tang Yunpeng, on the other hand, frowned and said in a deep voice, "Tan Xiao, pay attention to your attitude." Tan Xiao snorted coldly, "You think my attitude is not good enough? If it's not good enough, then fuck off." Anger rose inside Tang Yunpeng's heart. He had a prominent status and was now a high-ranking official. It had been many years since anyone dared to speak to him with such an attitude. Furthermore, his father's status was even more distinguished. He was one of the few senior figures in the country. But now, he was humiliated by a young man in his 20s, which made him want to do something about it. Tang Guosheng raised his hand to stop Tang Yunpeng and glared at him. Then, he looked at Tan Xiao and said, "Divine Dr. Tang, then I'll have to trouble you. Back to the ward." Upon seeing Tan Xiao's return, Su Jianda quickly asked, "Are you all right, Tan Xiao?" Tan Xiao squeezed out a smile and shook his head. "I'm fine, Uncle Jianda." Only then did Su Jianda feel relieved. He was a countryman through and through, and his family members were all born and raised farmers. Although they felt that Tang Guosheng looked familiar before, only now did they suddenly realize that they had seen him on TV. He was a high-ranking leader in the country. He was kind-hearted and wanted to persuade Tan Xiao not to offend such a big shot. But he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Tan Xiao pointed to the end of the bed and said in a deep voice, "Take off your coat and lie down. Face the ground." Tang Guosheng followed Tan Xiao's instruction and lay down at the end of the bed. Although he didn't know how Tan Xiao would treat him, Tan Xiao's reputation as a divine doctor was undeniable. Tan Xiao's fingers pressed on Tang Guosheng's Tanzhong acupoint and rubbed it for half a minute. Then, he took the alcohol and alcohol cotton from Li Hongji and rubbed it over and over again. His fingers then pressed on Tang Guosheng's Feishu acupoint. Asthma was also known as bronchial asthma. It was a chronic airway inflammation caused by a variety of cells and cellular components. If the condition worsened, it would lead to pneumonia. Chronic airway inflammation was often accompanied by increased airway responsiveness, leading to repeated episodes of wheezing, shortness of breath, chest tightness, and coughing. To cure it, on the one hand, the bronchial airway obstruction had to be treated, and on the other hand, the lung inflammation had to be relieved. Tang Xiao actually had a more effective treatment plan, but Tang Guosheng was, after all, old and not suitable for such an extreme but extremely effective treatment plan. Therefore, Tan Xiao could only choose a mild and less effective treatment method. However, even though this method was very peaceful, it was enough to make the surrounding people tremble in fear. As Tan Xiao handed the alcohol and alcohol cotton to Li Hongji, he moved his other hand away from Tang Guixing's Feishu acupoint. As the astral power in his body flowed into his arm and spread out in his palm, Tan Xiao began to pat Tang Guixing's back repeatedly. Every hit, astral power was slapped into Tang Guixing's body and then controlled to flow into his organs. Astral power gradually flowed into his lungs and trachea. Cough, cough, cough. The violent coughing made Tang Guixing's body tremble. His eyes were bloodshot and his face was flushed. Even the blue veins on his forehead were bulging. Everyone at the side was scared witless, especially those from the Tangs. They all had the same thought. Tang Xiao wouldn't take the opportunity to retaliate while he was treating the old patriarch and make the old patriarch suffer, right? About 10 minutes later, as Tang Guixing stopped coughing, Tan Xiao slowly withdrew his hands and washed them in warm water. Then, he said lightly, let the old doctors of Chinese Medicine Hospital prescribe you some Chinese medicine to nourish your qi and moisten your lungs for 3 to 5 days. Presently, he's fine now. Let him leave the hospital. There are not enough wards in the hospital. Don't delay others. This, Li Hongji was a bit hesitant. At this time, Tang Guixing slowly got up from the sickbed and sat there, stroking his chest. There was a hint of excitement on his aged face. He could clearly feel that his breathing, which was originally difficult to breathe, was exceptionally smooth now. Even his mind was much clearer. What made him most satisfied was the comfort all over his body. It was as if he had suddenly returned to a decade ago. His body felt much more relaxed. Leave the hospital. Immediately go through the discharge procedures. At this moment, Tang Guixing's voice was much stronger than before. Li Hongji didn't dare to offend Tan Xiao, nor did he dare to offend Tang Guixing. Now that Tang Guixing had compromised, he immediately felt relieved. However, when he looked at Tan Xiao again, the expression in his eyes was completely different from before. There was even a bit of admiration hidden in the deepest part of his eyes. Who was Tang Guixing? He was a senior statesman at the national level. His status was so honorable that it surpassed hundreds of millions of people. And Tan Xiao, he actually dared to treat him with such an attitude. Li Hongji even somewhat worshipped him. After Tan Xiao cured Tang Guixing, he didn't stay in the Chinese Medicine Hospital for a long time. He only had one thought now, and that was to immediately rush to his hometown in Qinghe County to see his mother. In the past, his mother didn't want to tell him, and he didn't want to make things difficult for her. But now, it was different. Since that person was still alive and had become a vegetable, he must let his mother know no matter what. As for whatever his mother chose, he would respect it. On the way back, Tan Xiao called Su Ben and Su Quan again. After learning that they had yet to leave for Star City, Tan Xiao immediately told them to wait for him in the Su family village. 2 hours later, Tan Xiao drove back to the Su family village. Just as he parked the car outside his grandmother's courtyard, Su Ben and Su Quan came out from the neighboring courtyard. Tan Xiao. Su Quan called out. Tan Xiao waved his hand and said, "You wait for me outside. I have something important to discuss with my mother. I'll talk to you after we've discussed it." Alright. Su Ben and Su Quan nodded at the same time. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.